Chapter 2292, World of Moon and Star. What? The last protector will actually be a radiant Saint Master with a measly one-colored soul core. How can that be possible? Chongyang only has a one-colored soul core. How can he bear such a great burden with his puny cultivation? Unbelievable. A disciple with a one-colored soul core will actually become the protector of a candidate with a four-colored soul core. Who is going to be protecting who? This is unprecedented. This is truly unprecedented. Protectors and retainers have always been radiant god kings throughout history. This is the first time someone with a one-colored soul core has been chosen to bear this burden. Elder Mu Zhong's announcement immediately caused an uproar among the radiant god kings present. The outcome left them all stunned. The vice leader must have intervened. It looks like Chongyang's relationship with the vice leader is nowhere near as simple as it seems. There's nothing we can do. Who let Chongyang be supported by a vice leader and vice leader Xianzhan out of them? Although the retainers of chosen saints throughout history have all been radiant god kings, there has never been a clear rule that only radiant god kings can become the chosen saint's retainer or the candidate's protector. As a result, no rules have been broken by choosing a weaker disciple as a protector. The radiant god kings communicated with one another secretly, engaging in an intense discussion. Currently, the huge square was silent, where even a dropped pin could be heard. However, the radiant god kings present were basically making a ruckus secretly. Their gazes towards Jianchen were extremely mixed, containing jealousy and envy. The authoritative elders on the stage fell silent as well. They looked at Jianchen with extremely mixed feelings. Naturally, they realized that Elder Mu Zhong changing his decision towards the end was due to orders from above. Even though all of them disliked this outcome, including Elder Mu Zhong, none of them dared to object. They did not dare to show even a hint of displeasure. This was because they all understood that Elder Mu Zhong likely received the order from Vice Leader Xianzhan. Let alone the elders, but even the 7 other vice leaders had to show some respect towards Vice Leader Xianzhan's decisions. Vice Leader Xianzhan treats Jianchen with far greater importance than I imagined. Yanxue, this is an opportunity for you. If you're able to establish a connection with Vice Leader Xianzhan through Chongyang, you will receive immeasurable benefits in the future, Mu Shui told Donglin Yanxue secretly. She no longer dared to underestimate Chongyang. Donglin Yanxue stood on the stage as she looked at Chongyang standing among the crowd. She experienced mixed feelings as she remained silent. How did this happen? To another side of the crowd, Gongzheng Exen became completely dumbstruck. This result also left Bai Yu dumbfounded. Her mouth hung open as disbelief covered her face. I hereby announce that the competition for Chosen Saint formally begins. Candidates and protectors, enter the stage immediately. At this moment, Elder Mu Zhong's voice rang out once again. With that, the 4 other candidates and the several dozen protectors immediately flew onto the stage. Junior sister, I'll be leaving first, Jianchen said to Bai Yu before using Radiant Saint Force to make his way onto the stage under the envious gazes of all the Radiant God Kings. Very soon, over 40 protectors stood in 5 groups behind their respective candidates. However, perhaps coincidentally, their gazes would always sweep past Jianchen. Aside from the 5 candidates, everyone else on the stage was either a Radiant God King or an Elder. Jianchen truly stood out by standing there with his measly one-colored soul core. Elder Mu Zhong stared at everyone with shining eyes and said, "Next, all of you will be sent into a miniature world. There are various vicious beasts in the miniature world. The strongest of them are only mid-god kings. Your mission as protectors is to keep your candidates safe in there." Afterwards, Elder Mu Zhong looked at the 5 candidates and said, "As for your mission as candidates, you must find Radiant Origin Pearls in the miniature world. Radiant Origin Pearls are extremely special, a natural occurrence from the Tower of Radiance. As a result, they cannot be found with the senses of the soul. Only those with great talent and great affinity for Radiant Saint Force can sense them within a certain distance. This round is extremely important to you all. The 2 who find the most Radiant Origin Pearls will face each other in battle. The remaining 3 will be eliminated. Remember, this round is limited to a year. During this time, the 5 of you are forbidden from engaging in life-threatening battles. or your status as candidate will be revoked. Elder Mu Zhong became solemn towards the end. Afterwards, Elder Mu Zhong took out an ancient seal. As soon as the ancient seal appeared, it radiated with a powerful pulse of energy and the power of space. It interfered with the operation of space in the region. Elder Mu Zhong waved the ancient seal towards the sky. Immediately, the space above the stage pulsed violently. A huge spatial gate gradually opened. This miniature world is called the world of moon and star. In order to prevent the appearance of vicious beasts that are too powerful, Elder He Tian will be going along with you. Now, all competitors enter the world of moon and star immediately. With that, the 5 candidates and the 45 protectors mobilized their radiant saint force. The protectors rose up behind their candidate and charged towards the spatial gate. When Jian Chen stepped into the world of moon and star, he discovered that everyone who had entered with him now stood on a mountain. The mountain seemed to have been severed by someone, so it had a small, flat top. Jian Chen closed his eyes and clearly sensed that the laws of the world here were incomplete. Compared to the saints' world, this entire world was at a much lower level. The space here is just too fragile. If I use my full strength, I can easily rip through it. Infinite Prime is the probably limit of what the world of moon and star can endure. If chaotic primes set foot here, they can easily collapse this place. Jian Chen sensed the situation of this miniature world quietly. Chapter 2293, Invincible God King 1. Welcome to the world of moon and star. The world of moon and star is a medium-sized miniature world containing incomplete yin and yang and the 5 elements. It is called the world of moon and star because there's only a single star and moon in this world. There is no sun. An old voice rang out from in front of them just as everyone was studying the world of moon and star curiously. A bald old man sat before everyone. His appearance was nothing special, but he was extremely skinny. Even though he wore a set of large white robes, people were still able to see his stick-like figure. Greetings to Elder He Tian. Donglin Yanshue, Gongzhang Xen Bin, and Da, and Shida all became polite and bowed towards the old man. Many of the radiant god kings present knew nothing about the old man's identity. On the other hand, as the 5 candidates had the right to enter the sacred hall and come in contact with the elders very often, they knew many of them. The protectors behind the candidates all bowed to show their respect after learning of the old man's identity. Elder He Tian waved his hand and said, Don't use these etiquettes with me. I'll tell you the situation of the world of moon and star in detail now. Elder He Tian continued, even though the world of moon and star is a medium-sized world, it is extremely vast. Even with the senses of my soul, I can only envelope a tenth of the world of moon and star. A few vicious beasts live in the world of moon and star. Due to the special environment here, the vicious beasts have very limited intelligence. Many of them have great strength but have yet to become self-conscious. They completely act based on instincts. Before you came here, the elders have already screened through the vicious beasts in the world of moon and star. They've killed off all the primordial realm beasts, so the remaining vicious beasts here are late god kings at most. All of you candidates will take a medallion. When you face life-threatening danger, immediately activate the medallion. No matter how far away you are, I will be able to sense the location of the medallion immediately. Then I can come save you. However, once the medallion is activated, it will mean your elimination from the competition for Chosen Saint. Alright, I've said everything. You can set off by yourselves now. Obtaining more radiant origin pearls than the others will be up to your own luck. The gateway will open once again in a year's time, and at that time, you just need to gather here. Elder He Tian sat on the ground without moving at all. He solemnly passed on this information before waving his hand and dispersing everyone. Afterwards, the 5 candidates left the mountain with their protectors. They did not travel together. Instead, they each chose a different direction to head off into. Even though there were many God King level vicious beasts in the world of moon and star, the candidates showed no fear at all. This was because most of their protectors were radiant God Kings, and their battle prowess was extremely great. They were hallowed saint masters known to be invincible among those of the same cultivation level. With so many hallowed saint masters, They were confident about putting up a fight against even peak God King beasts. Changyang, you're the weakest here. Remember, you can't run around recklessly. None of the vicious beasts here are something that you can handle. At this moment, Donglin Yanxue suddenly turned her head and said to Jian Chen. She looked at Jian Chen's face, which seemed ordinary due to his disguise, with her dark, beautiful eyes. Her gaze contained undetectable mixed feelings. Ever since she met Jian Chen for the first time beside the moon's reflection lake, she had felt that Jian Chen was always at ease and filled with confidence. He was mature and composed, the type who would not panic even if the sky collapsed. His bearing differed greatly from those so-called prodigies she saw from day to day. Moreover, whenever she saw Jian Chen, his gaze towards her would always remain tranquil. There were no emotions at all, completely different from the radiant Saint Masters who pursued her. As a result, Donglin Yanxue had become certain that Jian Chen had approached her and even offered her a precious pure soul for the simple purpose of entering the Tower of Radiance. After all, the Tower of Radiance was a holy land that all radiant Saint Masters strive to enter. As a radiant Saint Master, it only made sense for Jian Chen to want to enter the Tower of Radiance. However, ever since Jian Chen took out Vice Leader Xianzhan's medallion, Donglin Yanshue's doubts towards Jian Chen purposefully trying to get close to her sprang up again. Coupled with her master's explanation, Donglin Yanxue basically believed it firmly now. Entering the Tower of Radiance with the Vice Leader's medallion was nothing difficult at all, so why did Jian Chen offer her a pure soul and go to such lengths to become her protector? After all, she was only one of the 5 candidates. Even Donglin Yanxue was not completely confident about successfully becoming the chosen saint in the end. Despite knowing this, Jian Chen still took such action. It became quite obvious to clever people that his actions were just to closen his relationship with Donglin Yanxue. Jian Chen rubbed his nose when he heard Donglin Yanshue's words. He was left speechless. He had never thought that someone only equivalent to a deity would try to protect him. However, Donglin Yanxue did not look at Jian Chen for very long. She shifted her gaze rather indifferently. After becoming certain that Jian Chen was just trying to get close to her, her heart became rather cold. Her distance from Jian Chen increased. She found this to be very repulsive, and the upright image that Jian Chen had left in her heart through his various unconventional actions collapsed at that moment. As a result, she treated Jian Chen no differently from the other people who pursued her. Junior Changyang, you fan, am a little older than you, so I'll just call you Junior. You only need to follow behind Junior Yanxue in the world of Moon and Star. You don't need to worry about anything else. Leave it up to us, said a protector beside Donglin Yanxue. He was a middle-aged man and a mid-god king. Jian Chen knew a few things about his identity. He was the lord of the Cloud Mist Peak, Yufan. His cultivation was even greater than Han Xian and Zhou Yuan's. That's right. Leave all the vicious beasts we come across to us. Junior Changyang, you only need to take good care of Junior Yanxue, added a few more protectors afterwards. They all smiled and treated Jian Chen politely or even respectfully. Even though Jian Chen was the weakest of them all in terms of cultivation and needed the protection of others despite being a protector himself, none of the 8 protectors dared to offend him seeing how Vice Leader Xianzhan had supported him. They even tried their best to get close to Jian Chen. They all knew that it must have been Vice Leader Xianzhan's secret arrangement for Jian Chen to become a protector, or it would have been impossible for him to make it past the obstacle of Elder Mu Zhong. The peak lords who thought they were experienced and insightful naturally knew the reason. Jian Chen and the protectors exchanged a few pleasantries casually. Afterwards, he looked at Donglin Yanxue and said, "Can you sense where the radiant origin pearls are?" Jian Chen asked because he could already vaguely sense a pulse that was extremely similar to radiant saint force in a certain location up ahead. The pulse was extremely obscure and wondrous. He could sense the pulse, but it was not because of how great his senses were. Instead, it was a result of the laws of the hallowed he comprehended resonating with the pulse slightly. Donglin Yanxue looked ahead coldly and said, "You can't even sense these radiant origin pearls with the senses of your soul, so how can it be that easy to sense where they are?" Chapter 2294, Invincible God King 2. It looks like Donglin Yanxue has not sensed this pulse that's extremely similar to radiant saint force. However, I can't be too certain that this pulse is a radiant origin pearl, Jianchen thought. He had already learned from Elder Mu Zhong that the radiant origin pearl was something from the Tower of Radiance. It was extremely special and could not be discovered with the senses of the soul. Only those with great talent and affinity for radiant saint force could sense their existence. These people with great talent and affinity for radiant saint force basically referred to the geniuses who were assigned stars. 9-star geniuses were the greatest talents in the Radiant Saint Hall. They were the ones taking part in the competition for chosen saint this time. If this pulse really does come from the radiant origin pearl, doesn't that mean my talent is greater than Donglin Yanxue's? Jianchen thought. He stared right ahead. The pulse he sensed came from 100 kilometers away. At this moment, their group was basically traveling in a straight line, directly towards the pulse's location. They hovered around 20 meters above the ground as they traveled. Even though everyone had slowed down for Jianchen's sake, 100 kilometers was still nothing. Very soon, their group arrived within a range of 20 kilometers from the pulse's source. At this moment, Jianchen began to take note of Donglin Yanxue's reactions secretly, but he discovered no changes. She had not discovered the pulse. When they were 3 kilometers from the pulse, the group's direction shifted slightly, and they gradually drew further and further away from the pulse's location. Jianchen stopped without any hesitation and said, wandering around aimlessly like this isn't a good idea. Let's take a break and discuss our plans first. With that, Jianchen dispersed the radiant saint force around him and descended to the ground without anyone's consent. The 8 protectors behind Donglin Yanxue immediately became troubled. They glanced at Jianchen then back at Donglin Yanxue as they began to hesitate. They did not know whether they should continue onwards behind Donglin Yanxue or stop like Jianchen. The 8 of them understood that although they were the protectors of the candidate, they obviously had to protect Jianchen since Vice Leader Xianzhan was bold enough to allow him into the world of Moon and Star with a one-colored soul core. In the world of Moon and Star, there were many vicious beasts, with many at the level of god kings. They truly did not dare to leave Jianchen alone. If an accident occurred, and the vice leader came looking for the people responsible, it would not be a burden that they could bear. However, Donglin Yanxue frowned slightly. She looked at Jianchen with quite some displeasure and said, "The radiant origin pearls are extremely difficult to find. All searching methods are useless. Finding the pearls is completely up to luck, so do you really think these useless plans can help to find radiant origin pearls? It's better than running around aimlessly," Jianchen said casually. He glanced around and discovered a 10-meter-tall boulder 3 kilometers above the pulse's origins. Jianchen's eyes lit up. He said, "There's a rock there. Let me sit down first and come up with a plan so that we can collect some radiant origin pearls." After saying that, Jianchen directly flew towards the rock in the distance. Donglin Yanxue could not help but become greatly displeased when she saw Jianchen ignore the bigger picture and continue to act as he wished in the world of Moon and Star. Ever since her impression of Jianchen shattered, she had started to view him in a completely different light. Jianchen's actions right now repulsed Donglin Yanxue very much. From Donglin Yanxue's perspective, Jianchen's current actions were basically a waste of her precious time. After all, they only had 1 year to find the radiant origin pearls. Every second was extremely precious. Jianchen had already arrived before the rock now. He sat on it leisurely. The pulse he had sensed earlier came from below the rock. At such proximity, Jianchen could sense with even greater clarity that the object producing the pulse was a milky white pearl hidden beneath the soil. That should be the radiant saint pearl. Jianchen had basically confirmed that this was the pearl they were looking for. At this moment, Donglin Yanxue flew over with the 8 protectors, feeling displeased and impatient. Jianchen sat on the rock and silently sensed Donglin Yanxue's distance from the pearl. He wanted to learn how close she needed to be before she could sense the existence of the radiant saint pearl. Finally, when Donglin Yanxue was a kilometer away from him, her expression changed. In the next moment, surprise and joy flooded her eyes. She turned into a white streak of light and hurried towards the rock that Jianchen sat on as quickly as she could. She called out to Jianchen, Changyang, move. What? As if he had been caught off guard, Jianchen stared at Donglin Yanxue blankly in bewilderment. I told you to move. I want to shatter that rock. If you still don't move, don't blame me for hurting you, Donglin Yanxue called out. The laws of the hallowed had already condensed around her. She created a radiant palm, sending it towards the rock. Seeing this, Jianchen's expression finally changed. Without any hesitation, he directly leapt off the rock. Although it was impossible for Donglin Yanxue to harm him, he had to play the role of a radiant saint master with a one-colored soul core. Bang! Just when Jianchen separated from the rock, the boulder loudly shattered from Donglin Yanshue's strike. It was reduced to flying rubble. A resplendent white light shone out from beneath the boulder. A thumb-sized, white pearl lay there quietly. A radiant origin pearl. Donglin Yanxue cried out. She took a step forward and picked up the pearl in joy. So that's a radiant origin pearl. It can only be seen with the naked eye, and it's impossible to detect it with the senses of the soul. The radiant origin pearl is truly wondrous. At this moment, the 8 protectors had also arrived. They all studied the radiant Saint Pearl with curiosity as they clicked their tongues in admiration. Suddenly, Donglin Yanxue looked at Jianchen with suspicion and said, Changyang, I sensed something from almost a kilometer away, while you were only 10 meters away from the radiant origin pearl. Didn't you sense its existence from such a close distance? Don't forget that you're a 9-star genius, while I'm only a 1-star genius, Jianchen said helplessly. He did not want to expose his talent so soon. You can't blame Junior Changyang for this. The radiant origin pearl is just too hard to sense. Even with my 7-colored soul core, I could only sense it vaguely from around 100 meters away, a protector said after Jianchen finished talking. Sigh. With my talent as a 3-star genius and my 7-colored soul core, I could only vaguely sense its existence from 10 meters away. It only makes sense for Junior Changyang to fail to discover the radiant origin pearl. Another protector added shamefully, dispersing the doubts Donglin Yanxue had towards Jianchen perfectly. Donglin Yanshue's doubts mostly subsided after she heard the 2 protectors' words. She stowed the radiant origin pearl away and said to Jianchen, Changyang, what good plans do you have? Hurry up and tell me, don't waste too much time. Chapter 2295, Invincible God King, 3. Jianchen had obviously detected the change in Donglin Yanshue's treatment of him, but he did not care about it. From his perspective, it was enough as long as Donglin Yanxue could become the chosen saint, which would give him the right to enter the Tower of Radiance. Jianchen did not know that Vice Leader Xianzhan had the authority to let any Radiant Saint Master into the Tower of Radiance. However, even if he knew, he would not have been willing to approach the Vice Leader directly. Currently, Jianchen's identity was extremely sensitive, so he was unwilling to get too involved with the Vice Leader. Otherwise, he would definitely cause a lot of problems for the Vice Leader once his martial soul force was exposed. I believe all the places where powerful vicious beasts roam around have radiant origin pearls. We cannot detect the radiant origin pearls with the senses of the soul, but we can detect these vicious beasts. As a result, we only need to find these vicious beasts, suggested Jianchen. The radiant origin pearls came from the Tower of Radiance. They appeared in the world of Moon and Star because the elders had brought them in. Since searching for the pearls was a test set by the elders, there would definitely be a certain level of difficulty. It would not be as simple as leaving it up to luck. Donglin Yanxue immediately frowned when she heard that. Some powerful beasts in the world of Moon and Star were as powerful as God Kings. If they truly went and provoked these vicious beasts, let alone Jianchen struggling to keep himself safe with his measly 1-colored soul core, but even she with her 4-colored soul core would be reduced to an ant-like existence. They could not even endure the shock waves of battles against vicious beasts of such a level. Junior Changyang is right. There are probably radiant origin pearls within the territories of powerful vicious beasts. Junior Yanxue, why don't we search for these vicious beasts? Don't worry, Junior Yanxue. There are 8 radiant God Kings here. Dealing with those vicious beasts with lacking intellect will be a piece of cake. Yeah. Even if we come across peak God King vicious beasts, 2 or 3 of us will be enough to kill them easily. They're nothing to worry about. Radiant origin pearls are hard to find, but the vicious beasts are just too easy. Meanwhile, the 8 protectors showed no fear. They all spoke up with confidence. The 8 of them were all hallowed Saint Masters. As soon as they used their laws of the hallowed, their battle prowess would be even greater than fighters of the same level. As a result, they did not take the vicious beasts in the world of moon and star seriously at all. Alright then. Let's go find those vicious beasts. Donglin Yanxue hesitated, but she was persuaded in the end. She agreed to the suggestion. Afterwards, the 8 protectors became the ones leading the way. The senses of their God King level souls spread out in all directions as they began to search for the vicious beasts in the surroundings. At the same time, to another side of the world of moon and star, the group led by Gongjing Xen had stopped on some plains. 5 of the 9 protectors stood guard in the distance as Gongjing Xen gathered with the 4 other protectors. Gongjing Xen frowned heavily. Currently, his face was sunken. Ever since he entered the world of moon and star, his sunken face had never eased up. You're either the people closest to our Gongjing clan, or you have submitted to our Gongjing clan. Help me think of a way for Changyang to die in the world of moon and star, Gongjing Xen said with a darkened expression. Aside from the 5 other people, all of his protectors belonged to his Gongjing clan, so he placed great trust in the 4 of them. The 4 protectors around Gongjing Xen frowned and became troubled. If it were before, even if the Radiant Saint Hall discovered that we killed Changyang, it would be nothing. With our status, the disciplinary hall won't be able to do anything to us. They'll just give us a symbolic punishment. But now, who knows how Changyang is connected to Vice Leader Xianzhan? His status is different. Killing him will lead to consequences far too severe. If Vice Leader Xianzhan looks into this matter personally, probably even young Master Xin will be implicated. Yeah. Vice Leader Xianzhan isn't as easy to deal with as the 7 other Vice Leaders, and he's also the last person in the Radiant Saint Hall you'd want to provoke apart from the leader. Young Master Xin, you must not let your emotions control you. Young Master Xin, you have to calm down. Changyang has the support of Vice Leader Xianzhan, so you can't provoke him no matter what. You know exactly who Vice Leader Xianzhan is. He's an expert that even the ancestor of our Gongjing clan has to treat with courtesy. If Vice Leader Xianzhan decides to punish you, do you think the ancestor will personally show himself and protect you despite running the risk of offending Vice Leader Xianzhan? Young Master Xin, you must not be reckless. Even if we ignore the potentially severe consequences and send all 9 of us against Changyang, it's not possible for us to kill him because the 8 protectors around Donglin Yanxue will definitely treat Changyang's safety with even greater importance than Donglin Yanxue herself. They'll throw their lives on the line to keep him safe. Moreover, who knows whether young Master Xian's 5 other protectors will listen to the young master and attack Changyang. That's an uncertain factor too. The 4 protectors around Gongjing Xen tried to persuade him to give up on the thought of killing Changyang here. Gongjing Xen only had a 4-colored soul core. With his cultivation level, he was basically dreaming if he wanted to kill Changyang who 8 protectors guarded. He would need his protectors to take action in the end, but if they really attacked Jianqin, disaster would be waiting for them after they left the world of moon and star. In their eyes, killing Changyang was basically digging their own graves. Moreover, they did not have any particularly great grievances with Changyang. They were naturally unwilling to die a pointless death for Gongjing Xen. Gongjing Xian's face became uglier and uglier. With the cultivations of the Radiant God Kings, there was no need for them to clash with the protectors around Donglin Yanxue at all to kill Changyang. They only needed to approach him amiably, then deal a killing strike, easily claiming Changyang's life. They all declined because they were afraid of offending Vice Leader Xianzhan. Young Master Xin, the priority is the position of Chosen Saint. Let's quickly search for the Radiant Origin Pearls instead. 3 people will be directly eliminated in the first round of the trials. Young Master Xin cannot be eliminated here. A Radiant God King changed the topic to redirect Gongjing Xian's attention. Young Master Xin, searching for Radiant Origin Pearls is the priority right now. There are definitely radiant origin pearls where the powerful vicious beasts prowl in the world of moon and star. The young master needs to take action quickly, or the 4 others will take the lead, another protector added. If that's the case, let's set off immediately then. Let's find the radiant origin pearls first. Gongzheng Xen also knew it was impossible to get these people to kill Jianchen. He stood up with a sunken face and gathered his protectors before leaving the place. At the same time, the groups led by Xen Bin and De and Shide all directed their attention towards the powerful vicious beasts in the world of moon and star in their respective areas. Clearly, Jianchen was not the only one who had thought of this. Chapter 2296, Invincible God King 4. Sitting on the mountain at the entrance to the world of moon and star, Elder He Tian slowly opened his eyes. He looked towards the locations of the 5 candidates as he could not help but smile mysteriously. He muttered to himself, they've finally thought about dealing with those vicious beasts. That's right. There are indeed radiant origin pearls where the powerful vicious beasts roam, except those vicious beasts aren't as simple as you have imagined. They're not going to be that easy to deal with. It's time for you to suffer a little now. When his thoughts reached here, Elder He Tian's eyes suddenly narrowed. He abruptly stood up and stared into the distance. He became stern as he said, what powerful ripples of space. Someone has opened the gateway to the world of moon and star. Who is it? Before he even finished speaking, Elder He Tian had turned into a streak of silver-white lightning as he shot off into the distance as quickly as he could. 100 kilometers away, space distorted heavily. Countless cracks intersected as powerful pulses in space radiated outwards. This lasted for just a few seconds before the space suddenly shattered like a mirror, forming a pitch-black spatial tunnel. A figure shone with resplendent light inside the tunnel. He strode over firmly, entering the world of moon and star through the spatial tunnel. After the figure emerged, the spatial tunnel behind him vanished, and the shattered space also began to repair itself. Soon, it returned to its previous state. At this moment, the resplendent light around the figure gradually vanished, revealing his appearance. He was a young man who seemed to be in his 20s. Dressed in azure robes, his eyes shone like the moon and the stars. His firm, handsome face possessed a weathered sense that one could only possess after going through many trials, including baptisms of blood. The young man hovered in the air with his hands behind his back. He looked around with his shining eyes, studying his surroundings. He muttered to himself, there's a single star and moon in the sky. It looks like I'm in the right place. This is the world of moon and star, the place where the Radiant Saint Hall has chosen to hold a trial for selecting their chosen saint. As he spoke, he glanced to one side casually, and his lips gradually curled into a cold smile. I never thought an elder would be here as well. The Radiant Saint Hall has truly prepared a huge gift for me. With that, a white streak of light shot over like a bolt of lightning. It arrived in a single instance and revealed Elder He Tian. Elder He Tian's presence surged as laws of the hallowed revolved around him. He arrived while emitting massive pressure, but his face changed drastically the moment he saw the young man's appearance. He cried out, Qing Shan, it's you. The young man smiled. Coupled with his handsome face, it was extremely enchanting and very warm, enough to steal the hearts of countless young women in the world. However, Elder He Tian did not feel warm at all. Instead, his heart turned cold. As if he were facing a great opponent, his face had become extremely stern. I never thought you would know me. It looks like my name is very renowned in the Radiant Saint Hall, smiled the young man. Qing Shan, how did you get here? And why have you come? Elder He Tian called out solemnly. Even though he had already condensed a soul tree and was an elder of the Radiant Saint Hall, possessing a cultivation equivalent to the primordial realm, he did not dare to become careless at all when he faced this young man who was only a god king. Qing Shan's name had already spread through the saints' world long ago. Many people knew about him. He could suppress all the god kings in the saints' world and hold the position of first on the god king's throne firmly. There were even many rumors that he had fought experts at the primordial realm. These colorful rumors made the many god kings and some primordial realm experts come to believe that Qing Shan was an invincible god king since quite some time ago. He was publicly acknowledged to be the most powerful god king. However, Qing Shan's name hung high up on the Radiant Saint Hall's bounty list. All the elders knew his name, and they all resented him deeply. They treated him as the greatest problem in the way of the Radiant Saint Hall's future. This was because an elder of the Radiant Saint Hall had died to Qing Shan's hands before. However, when Elder He Tian personally faced Qing Shan, he immediately thought of the various rumors, and his heart began to shiver. Is there a need for me to tell you how I entered the world of moon and star? However, I can tell you why I've come. Qing Shan looked at Elder He Tian, and his smile gradually turned cold as he said, I've come naturally for the 5 candidates. I will make the Radiant Saint Hall go without a chosen saint this time. Qing Shan, don't you dare. Elder He Tian's face changed drastically when he heard that. I, Qing Shan, am even bold enough to kill an elder of your Radiant Saint Hall. Why won't I dare to kill a few candidates? However, one more elder will be dying at my hands today, Qing Shan sneered. With that, he directly struck out, sending a palm strike towards Elder He Tian. Qing Shan's hand carried a mysterious power. It was able to affect the souls of his target through invisible means. Immediately, Elder He Tian's soul became unstable and jittery when he faced Qing Shan's attack. His vision also blurred slightly as waves of dizziness began to overwhelm him. Martial soul force, Elder He Tian cried out. He bit the tip of his tongue to forcefully gather his concentration using the pain. Laws of the Hallowed gathered around him as he engaged in an intense battle against Qing Shan. Elder He Tian was only equivalent to a first heavenly layer infinite prime, so he did not dare to show any carelessness before Qing Shan. He used his full strength right from the start, without holding back anything at all. However, as soon as he clashed with Qing Shan, Elder He Tian's heart sank. The martial soul force in Qing Shan's hand was already enough to affect his soul to a certain degree when he struck out. However, when they truly clashed, the influence from the martial soul force became even greater. He felt like someone had used a huge hammer to strike his soul heavily. Although Elder He Tian could block Qing Shan's attacks, he could do nothing about the impact from the martial soul force. He was forced to endure it. Moreover, this impact would not just occur once or twice. He would have to endure it every time he clashed with Qing Shan. If they continued to fight, his soul would eventually reach a point where it could not last any longer even if his strength greatly exceeded Qing Shan's. Marital soul force is indeed profound. I can't defend against it at all. I need to finish this battle fast, or I'll definitely be defeated, thought Elder He Tian. He struggled to imagine just how severe the consequences would be if he were defeated. He was afraid that it would truly turn out as Qing Shan had said, where the current generation would be left in an awkward state with no chosen saint. As Elder He Tian engaged in an intense battle against Qing Shan, the group of 10 led by Donglin Yanxue finally found a powerful vicious beast 2 million kilometers away. Naturally, an intense battle erupted. Among Donglin Yanxue's 8 protectors, one of them currently faced a bull-like vicious beast that stood over 30 meters tall in a battle of life or death. The bull-like vicious beast was extremely large. It was like a hill as it stood there, making the hallowed Saint Master who fought against it seem as insignificant as an ant. However, even though they differed greatly in size, they were evenly matched in their battle. The laws of the hallowed clashed with the brutal strength of the beast, erupting with deafening booms. Powerful energy wreaked havoc in the surroundings, stirring up the origin energy in the area while kicking up dust and creating great cracks in the ground. This was a battle between god kings. The shockwaves spread for several tens of thousand kilometers. Without the corresponding strength, it was impossible for one to get close to the battle. 100 kilometers away, Donglin Yanxue stood beside Jianqin. She stared at the intense battle up ahead as the 7 other protectors all stood around Jianqin and Donglin Yanxue to protect them. The 2 at the very front worked together to maintain an energy barrier, blocking the shockwaves from the battle up ahead. If it were not for the barrier, It would have been impossible for Donglin Yanxue to stand so close with her cultivation that was only equivalent to a deity. She would have been pushed far away by the shockwaves from the battle between man and beast. At this moment, all of them paid close attention to the battle. They all frowned, and the faces of the 7 other protectors became rather ugly. How can this vicious beast be so powerful? It's clearly just an early god king, yet it can hold its ground against Qin Feng, who has a mid-7-colored soul core. Cheng Feng's a hallowed saint master after all. Hallowed saint masters are much more powerful than fighters of the same cultivation level in the saint's world. With Chen Feng's cultivation that is equivalent to a mid-god king, he can defeat mid-god king fighters easily, yet he has remained matched for so long against a vicious beast that is only an early god king. How are the vicious beasts of the world of moon and star so powerful? The 7 protectors who guarded Donglin Yanxue and Jianqin discussed the matter sternly. The scene before them had upheaved their understandings completely. A strange light flickered in the eyes of Jianqin. He stared at the colossal vicious beast with brimming interest before looking at the sky from time to time. He showed both surprise and doubt. After fusing with a strand of true chaotic force, his soul had changed, giving him various abilities. Currently, he could clearly sense a sliver of power that belonged to the world of moon and star fuse into the vicious beast as it fought, allowing the beast to hold its ground against a hallowed saint master that was akin to a mid-god king while only being an early god king. The vicious beast before me can actually use the power of the world of moon and star? Jianqin was visibly moved by this discovery. He sank into his thoughts. This was not as simple as controlling the powers of the surroundings. The power of the world of moon and star had fused with the vicious beast, assisting it in battle. It was similar to when the artifact spirit controlled the power of the Neptunian Divine Palace to protect Xiaoman. The power of the Neptunian Divine Palace came from the structure itself, yet the power that assisted the vicious beast came from the world of moon and star. It was definitely not as simple as manipulating the origin energy that permeated the surroundings. Is this an innate ability of the vicious beasts, or is the world of moon and star similar to the Neptunian Divine Palace, especially taking care of these vicious beasts? Jianqin sank into his thoughts. It would be fine if it were the former, but he could not help but feel his heart sink if it were the latter. However, I can't eliminate the possibility of this being the Radiant Saint Hall's handiwork. After all, this is a place where a trial is being held. Since it's a trial, it must have a certain level of difficulty and challenge, Jianqin guessed. However, at this moment, Jianqin's eyes narrowed. Suddenly, he looked behind him. There was an intense battle between primordial realm experts in the distance. Even though it was far away, he was still able to sense the surging energy ripples from the fight between the primordial realm experts as soon as they erupted. At that moment, Jianqin's gaze became piercing. As if he could see through space, he directly viewed what was happening over 2 million kilometers away. With Jianqin's current cultivation, seeing something 2 million kilometers away was no longer a problem. He could clearly see Elder He Tian, who watched over this entire place, engage in a battle with an azure-robed man. It's martial soul force. It's actually the pulses from martial soul force. Jianqin called out inside. At that moment, he fell into emotional turmoil. He struggled to remain calm. He possessed martial soul force himself, but he was unable to find a cultivation method for it. As a result, his martial soul force was still puny. Jianqin immediately recognized the marital soul force used during the fight between Qing Shan and Elder He Tian. However, the protectors behind Jianqin were all focusing on the vicious beast up ahead, so none of them discovered the change to Jianqin's expression. That young man is only a god king, yet he slightly has the upper hand against Elder He Tian. There's only one god king so powerful and uses martial soul force, Qing Shan, who ranks first on the God King's throne, Jianqin thought. Very soon, he deduced the young man's identity, and the light in his eyes flickered. The battle between Qing Shan and Elder He Tian grew in intensity. It erupted with shockwaves that were even more terrifying. Eventually, the 7 protectors around Jianqin and Donglin Yanxue sensed it. Immediately, the 7 protectors looked behind them. Their visions were nowhere near as great as Jianchen's, so they were unable to see so far away with their naked eyes. As a result, they all used the senses of their souls. Even though they could envelop the region easily with the senses of their souls as mid-god kings, the region was filled with a fierce storm of energy, which prevented their senses from getting close. However, they were still able to sense Elder He Tian's presence and the power of the laws of the hallowed within the storm of energy. As a result, their expressions immediately changed. Oh no, there's a primordial realm expert in the world of moon and star. They seem to be on par with Elder He Tian. This is not good. How is that possible? Haven't the elders cleansed out all the experts who've reached the primordial realm? How did they miss one? Since the primordial realm expert is fighting with Elder He Tian, it must be an enemy. If Elder He Tian gives way, we'll be faced with a disaster. The 7 protectors all cried out as their faces became extremely ugly. Clearly, they had realized the severity of the matter. Chapter 2298. The name of Qing Shan. Although Donglin Yanxue was unable to sense the shockwaves of the battle in the distance due to her limited cultivation, she learned quite a lot from the cries of the protectors, and her expression changed as a result. Quick, send some more people over and finish the battle fast, Donglin Yanxue called out. Immediately, 3 protectors out of the 7 remaining charged towards the vicious beast. The 4 left were responsible for Jianchen and Donglin Yanxue's safety. The 7 protectors were all hallowed Saint Masters with mid-7-colored soul cores. Now that 4 of them were working together against a vicious beast that was only an early god king, it was impossible for the beast to last long, regardless of how extraordinary the beast had become thanks to the assistance of the world. Soon, the colossal beast emitted a chilling cry and had its head cut off by a blade of light condensed from the laws of the hallowed the 4 protectors wielded. It collapsed onto the ground with a weight of several dozen tons, causing the earth to tremble and dust to get kicked up. Quick, look for the radiant origin pearl. The moment the beast died, Jianchen immediately called out to Donglin Yanxue. Jianchen had become stern as well. The hallowed Saint Masters were unable to observe the battle in the distance, but he was able to see it clearly. Qing Shan's strength was unimaginably great. As a god king, he had actually managed to gain the upper hand against a primordial realm expert like Elder He Tian, completely suppressing the elder. From a single glance, Jianchen could tell that unless an accident happened, Elder He Tian's defeat was only a matter of time. As a result, he became heavy-hearted. If Elder He Tian was unable to stop Qing Shan, it would be impossible for the protectors to be Qing Shan's opponent even if they worked together. Donglin Yanxue did not hesitate at all after hearing Jianchen call out. She immediately flew towards the nest of the vicious beast while surrounded in radiant saint force. Jianchen and the 8 protectors followed behind her closely. As soon as they reached a kilometer away from the nest, a gleam of light shone through Donglin Yanxue's eyes. She could already sense the existence of the radiant origin pearl, so she immediately sped up. A while later, the group entered the vicious beast's nest. It was a huge cave, gloomy and damp. A thumb-sized radiant origin pearl had been wedged in the rock at the top of the cave. It shone with a gentle light, providing some weak luminance to the gloomy cave. A protector took action. He extended a finger, and a strand of power from the laws of the hallowed shot out from his fingertip. It struck the rock above and allowed the radiant origin pearl to fall into his hand. Then he passed it to Donglin Yanxue. Donglin Yanxue stowed away the radiant origin pearl. Just when she wanted to check the surroundings, Jianchen's voice rang out. "We can't stay here for long. We must leave immediately." Donglin Yanxue frowned when she heard that. She was the candidate. She was the only one in charge here. Since when did Chang Yang become the one giving out orders? Donglin Yanxue looked at Jianchen with impatience. Right when she wanted to say something, the expressions of the 8 protectors beside her all changed. "Oh no, they're heading towards us. Those are the shockwaves from primordial realm experts. Once they're too close to us, even we will be injured. Not only will we be injured, but we won't even be able to protect ourselves. No, we have to leave quick. They're moving far too quickly. If we don't go, it'll be too late and we'll end up suffering." The 8 protectors all cried out. All of them had become extremely stern. They had been observing the distance with the senses of their souls. Even though they were unable to approach the center of the battle, they could clearly tell where Elder He Tian and Qing Shan were. The cries from the 8 protectors immediately made Donglin Yanxue lose interest in bickering with Jian Chen over this tiny matter. She immediately left with everyone. The 8 protectors clearly demonstrated the intense uneasiness in their hearts. As soon as they emerged from the cave, they controlled Radiant Saint Force to envelope Jian Chen and Donglin Yanxue without any explanation before shooting off into the distance as quickly as they could. At this moment, even Donglin Yanxue could hear the thunderous booms in the distance. The sounds became louder and louder. It was getting closer and closer. Donglin Yanshue's heart sank with this. It seemed that the situation was far worse than she had imagined. The 8 protectors who fled with them were completely silent. Their faces were sunken as they escaped as quickly as they could. They wanted to pull away from the primordial realm experts who rapidly approached them. As the deafening booms drew closer and closer, shockwaves of energy extremely terrifying to the 8 protectors wreaked havoc in the surroundings, causing space to distort. The origin energy that permeated the world of moon and star became exceedingly disorderly. In the distant sky, 2 figures were clearly presented before the 8 protectors. Elder He Tian and Qing Shan were already close enough for the 8 protectors to see them. However, when the 8 protectors saw the scene in the distance, their faces changed drastically. Intense fear rose up from the bottom of their hearts. What did they see? They clearly saw Elder He Tian covered in blood, blocking the attacks from behind him as he fled for his life. A young man in azure robes pursued Elder Mu Tian closely from behind. He had a cold, resolute face as his eyes shone with an astonishing cold light. Clearly, Elder He Tian was not the young man's opponent. Qing Shan of the martial soul lineage has infiltrated the world of moon and star. He wants to kill all people from the Radiant Saint Hall. All protectors immediately flee while protecting your candidates. Find a way to contact the outside world. At this moment, Elder He Tian's old voice rang out. His hoarse voice was filled with urgency, along with some weakness like he was becoming feeble. Qing Shan was just too powerful. Whenever he clashed with Elder He Tian, he was able to impact Elder He Tian's soul with his martial soul force. They had not fought for long, but Elder He Tian was already defeated and heavily injured. Currently, he could only flee desperately. What? Qing Shan of the martial soul lineage has infiltrated this place. It's actually someone from the martial soul lineage. We're in trouble now. Even though Qing Shan is a peak god king, he already has the power to kill primordial realm experts. It's impossible for us to be his opponent. Run quick. The 8 protectors all paled. Without any hesitation, they immediately began to flee crazily at the greatest speed that they could unleash with Jian Chen and Donglin Yanxue in tow. The name of Qing Shan had become piercing to their ears since a long time ago. Even though they utterly resented this person, they did not dare to put up any resistance at all when they truly saw him. The only thought left in their heads was to run. The further they could run, the better it would be. It would be best if they could run to a place where Qing Shan could not find them, somewhere they could hide well. At that moment, Donglin Yanxue, who was taken along with the protectors, struggled to remain calm as well. Her exquisite face paled slightly as deep unease filled her eyes. Out of them, Jian Chen was the only person who could remain composed. However, he frowned heavily as well. Hurry up and reunite with the 4 other groups, then combine the strength of all the Radiant God Kings to work with Elder He Tian. It won't be impossible to defeat Qing Shan if we do that, Jian Chen said calmly. However, the 8 protectors completely ignored Jian Chen. Not only did they not hurry off in the direction of the 4 other groups, but they even devoted themselves to fleeing further away instead. Jian Chen could see the undisguised fear and vague despair within their eyes. Jian Chen sighed secretly with this discovery. These people left him extremely disappointed. Adding up the 5 groups, they had a total of 44 Radiant God Kings. If they worked together, they would be a great force. Coupled with Elder He Tian, he believed that they would be able to fend off Qing Shan. Even if they were not Qing Shan's opponent, At least they would not have to suffer an utter defeat at Qin Shan's hands. Even if a slight difference in strength remained, he could secretly help out, and they would be able to fend off Qin Shan. Even suppressing him was not impossible. However, he had underestimated the protectors' fear of Qin Shan. They did not have the courage to fight him at all. They did not dare to fight Qin Shan and remained beside Jianchen the entire time. As a result, Jianchen was unable to find the opportunity to secretly help out despite wanting to. After bellowing out, Elder He Tian changed directions and flew off elsewhere, drawing Qin Shan away. Qin Shan glanced past Donglin Yanshue's group indifferently. He smiled coldly before continuing his pursuit. In his eyes, there was no need to worry about the radiant God Kings at all. No matter how they fled, they would not be able to escape from him. However, Elder He Tian was the elder who watched over this place, so it was extremely likely for him to possess a method to contact the outside world. As a result, killing him was the top priority right now. Qin Shan gradually traveled further away as he followed Elder He Tian. The booms from their battle grew more distant as well before disappearing completely in the end. However, the 8 fleeing Radiant God Kings did not stop even then. Their speed did not decrease at all as they fled into the distance. Along the way, they even flew over the territories of a few vicious beasts. The beasts that wandered the land pursued them crazily, but they were also ignored. The Radiant God Kings only focused on running. Sigh, Jianchen sighed inside. He had underestimated the protector's fear of Qin Shan, which made him feel extremely helpless. Moreover, he had sensed the existence of many radiant origin pearls along the way, but in the end he could only watch on as he missed out on them. It was impossible for him to remind the group. The escape continued for half a day. Finally, the 8 protectors stopped, descending into a hidden forest. Junior Yanxue, Junior Changyang, do you have a method of contacting the outside world? As soon as they stopped, the Lord of the Cloud Mist Peak, Yu Fan, asked this. He was very stern. The 7 other protectors all looked towards Jianchen and Donglin Yanxue eagerly. They did not even have the courage to fight Qin Shan. Even the old elder who watched over the world of Moon and Star was not Qin Shan's opponent, so they could only place their hopes on Jianchen and Donglin Yanxue, these 2 juniors with impressive backgrounds. They hoped they could contact the outside world and alert the Sacred Hall of what was happening here so that they could send even more powerful elders to kill Qin Shan. Donglin Yanxue shook her head gloomily and replied, "The world of Moon and Star is a miniature world. All my methods of communication are unable to pass through the obstructions here. I can't contact anyone in the outside world right now." Undisguised disappointment filled the eyes of the 8 protectors. Afterwards, all of them looked at Jianchen, and one of them asked urgently as he looked at Jianchen with anticipation and asked, "Junior Changyang, do you have any method of contacting Vice Leader Xianzhan?" Jianchen also sighed gently, "I'm the same as Donglin Yanxue. I can't establish contact with the outside world at all due to being in a different territory. Probably only Elder He Tian has the method of contacting the Sacred Hall from here. There's nothing that we can do," Donglin Yanxue added with a heavy heart. The 8 protectors all revealed ugly expressions. Elder He Tian was currently being hunted down by Qin Shan. He was busy fleeing for his life, so how could he have the time to contact the outside world? No one knew how much longer he could last for either. As soon as they considered the possibility of being coldly hunted down by Qin Shan soon, they all became filled with unease and fear. Consider my earlier suggestion. If you keep on dragging it out, it really might be too late, Jianchen said again. He believed that this was the only way for the Radiant Saint Masters to repel Qin Shan. The 8 Radiant Saint Masters all hesitated. After a while of thought, they expressed their thoughts and began an intense discussion over Jianchen's suggestion. Only 2 of them agreed to Jianchen's suggestion of working with the 4 other groups to deal with Qin Shan, unleashing all their strength as Radiant God Kings to fight alongside Elder He Tian. Meanwhile, a portion of them objected to the suggestion. They believed that even if they gathered everyone's strength, they still would not be Qin Shan's opponent. After all, they had already gained a deep impression of Qin Shan's infamy. They did not wish to clash with Qin Shan openly. They believed they should take advantage of when Qing Shan was focused on Elder He Tian to flee far away and hide well. Then they could wait until the world of Moon and Star was opened to the outside world again a year later. The last group of people hesitated. They struggled to make a decision. At a time like this, Jian Chen and Donglin Yanxue had instead become rather useless. Even with Donglin Yanshue's status as a candidate, she was unable to influence the decision of the Radiant God Kings. This was because Donglin Yanxue had not become the chosen saint yet, and the 8 Radiant God Kings were only her protectors that were tasked with guarding her. They were not her retainers who had to listen to all of her orders. Jian Chen felt helpless as he listened to the bickering between the Radiant God Kings. He was no longer in the mood to listen to their discussion. He walked over to a huge tree nearby and lopped off the ends of the twigs. Like he was weightless, he sat down on a branch that was only as thick as a wrist. He looked ahead, and his eyes shone brightly. As a result, his gaze became piercing, allowing him to see into the distance. Chapter 2300. Death of a Primordial Realm Expert. But very soon, Jian Chen's eyes dimmed down and returned to normal. Elder He Tian and Qing Shan were just too far away. They were beyond the limits of his vision. Jian Chen looked back and glanced at the 8 Radiant God Kings who were still arguing, as well as Donglin Yanxue who sat on the ground helplessly. After some slight hesitation, he carefully extended the senses of his soul into the distance. Jian Chen's current level of cultivation was greater than the 8 protectors. Coupled with the changes to his soul, the senses of his soul were far greater than the 8 protectors. As a result, Jian Chen enveloped a range of 5 million kilometers in just a short amount of time. However, he did not stop there. 6 million kilometers. 7 million kilometers. Very soon, the senses of Jian Chen's soul had extended for 10 million kilometers, and he finally found traces of Qing Shan and Elder He Tian. The two of them were still locked in combat and were producing powerful shockwaves. These shockwaves impacted the senses of Jian Chen's soul quite a bit, but it did not obstruct his senses completely like it did with the 8 protectors. As a result, Jian Chen was able to observe the battle between Qing Shan and Elder He Tian clearly. At this moment, Elder He Tian's presence was feeble. He was grievously injured, and he had lost most of his essence blood. He had become a skinny bag of bones, which was clearly the price for using various secret techniques. He struggled to block Qing Shan's attacks more and more as blood constantly sprayed from his mouth. He was nearing his end. Qing Shan's attacks remained just as sharp and swift as before. His presence was so powerful that it made the wind and clouds churned. Even though he was also bloodied, he was not feeble. When the senses of Jian Chen's soul reached over, a bright light flashed through Elder He Tian's gloomy eyes just when he was about to reach his end. As if he now saw a ray of hope, he immediately called out, "I am an elder of the Radiant Saint Hall. My friend hidden in the dark, no matter who you are, please intervene. Our Radiant Saint Hall will be filled with gratitude." However, Qing Shan had also sensed it as well. A chilling light immediately flashed through his cold eyes as he looked at Elder He Tian like the latter was already dead. He said coldly, "Quit dreaming. No matter who comes today, they won't be able to save you." With that, Qing Shan's clothes immediately began to ruffle as his hair danced crazily. A terrifying presence radiated from him, filling the surroundings. Soul Mountain Seal. Qing Shan crossed his hands and used a powerful secret technique. After calling out, a blurry, illusionary mountain immediately condensed. With immense pressure, it descended upon Elder He Tian with terrifying force. Elder He Tian bellowed out and also used a secret technique. He burnt the last of his essence blood. At the cost of his vitality, he condensed the laws of the hallowed into a resplendent spear that shot out. This was the Elder He Tian's last attack. After that, he became completely haggard. He was feeble and was basically taking his last breaths. He had used everything he had in his battle against Qing Shan, but he felt completely powerless before the latter's martial soul force. He was unable to resist the impact to his soul at all, so it was his utter defeat. He did not even manage to cause any severe injuries to Qing Shan. Boom! Elder He Tian's final attack collided with the illusionary mountain Qing Shan had conjured. Immediately, there was a great rumble as the mountain shook. However, it only shook. Not only did the attack fail to disperse the mountain, but it continued to sink at the same speed, enveloping Elder He Tian with tremendous pressure. "My friend, please intervene." Elder He Tian bellowed out miserably, but in the end he was struck heavily by Qing Shan's soul mountain seal before the mysterious person could intervene. The soul mountain seal was extremely wondrous. It did not injure Elder He Tian's body at all. Instead, it directly crushed down on Elder He Tian's soul. Elder He Tian's dimming soul immediately collapsed. It had dispersed. Elder He Tian of the Radiant Saint Hall had died. After Elder He Tian's death, the senses of Jian Chen's soul receded into the distance like water, vanishing in a single instance. However, Qing Shan looked around after killing Elder He Tian. His eyes shone with a chilling light as he murmured, "Who is this person? The senses of his soul are slightly different from other people. If he purposefully hides it, even I can't locate him. But from the strength of the senses of his soul, he's probably equal to the Elder of the Radiant Saint Hall. It's fine if he's not a part of the Radiant Saint Hall, but I can't show any mercy if he is." Jian Chen slowly opened his eyes as he sat on a tree 10 million kilometers away from where Elder He Tian had died. He stared right ahead sternly. He had witnessed Qing Shan's strength. His strength was far greater than what Shui Yunlan displayed in the Neptunian Divine Palace. He was no weaker than Jian Chen himself. With Elder He Tian's death, the hallowed Saint Masters in the world of Moon and Star had completely lost the power to fight against Qing Shan. Naturally, Jian Chen had heard Elder He Tian's pleas prior to the latter's death. He did want to help out, but there was nothing he could do from 10 million kilometers away. Even if he really could assist him somehow, he needed to consider whether his identity would be exposed. Otherwise, it would become a stupid decision of dooming oneself. "Aren't you scared at all?" At this moment, Donglin Yenshue's voice rang out from behind Jian Chen. She had also leapt onto the tree and stood on a branch gently while she looked at Jian Chen's figure with rather mixed feelings. At that moment, to Donglin Yenshue's surprise, Jian Chen's back seemed particularly straight and tall. She felt like he could hold up the sky. But afterwards, Donglin Yenshue's secret shook her head and discarded the hilarious and immature thought. She became embarrassed by her own thinking. After all, the person seated before her was just a weak radiant Saint Master whose cultivation was not even as great as hers. What's the use of being afraid? I've faced plenty of much more despairing situations in the past. In my eyes, the danger you face right now is nothing, Jian Chen said calmly. He sat still on the tree as he looked ahead. Donglin Yenshue clearly became slightly surprised when she saw Jian Chen demonstrate a level of composure that even the 8 radiant god kings lacked. She could not help but study Jian Chen properly. At that moment, she suddenly discovered that she seemed to have failed to see through Jian Chen completely. However, as soon as she thought of Jian Chen's intentions of getting close to her, she became extremely repulsed. "Changyang, do you regret becoming my 9th protector very much now that we're in danger?" Donglin Yenshue asked. She spoke very softly, very indifferently, and slightly coldly. "I don't regret it because I want to enter the Tower of Radiance. Becoming a retainer of the 5 candidates is the only choice," said Jian Chen. He spoke very calmly, without any emotion at all. Donglin Yenshue frowned. Just when she wanted to ask him why he had gone so far when he could have just asked the vice leader to enter the Tower of Radiance with his medallion, Jian Chen glanced at the 8 radiant god kings and said, "They've finished discussing. Let's head over and see what they've decided on." With that, Jian Chen drifted off the tree slowly and made his way over to the 8 protectors. Donglin Yenshue could only swallow what she wanted to ask earlier. Chapter 2301. Targeted? Have you thought it through? Jian Chen arrived before the 8 protectors. He glanced past them and asked calmly. The 8 radiant god kings looked at one another. They clearly seemed rather dispirited. They said, "We've made our decision. We all believe we should run far away. The world of Moon and Star is so large. Even Elder He Tian could only envelop a tiny portion of it with the senses of his soul. No matter how powerful Qin Shan is, he's still a god king. We don't believe he can search through the entire world of moon and star in one short year. We only need to last a year. After that year, the world of moon and star will open again, and the sacred hall will send powerful elders to search the entire world of star and moon. These elders will definitely find us. That might be our only chance of surviving. If that's the case, let's get moving, said Jianqin. This time, he did not say anything else. If Elder He Tian was still present, the radiant god kings might have been able to fend off Qin Shan. But now that Elder He Tian was dead, it was impossible for the radiant god kings to stand up to Qin Shan even if all 5 groups worked together. They had already lost their only chance at repelling Qin Shan. Running far away then hiding was indeed the only method of survival left for the radiant god kings. Afterwards, everyone continued on their way. Due to their weaker strength and slower speed, Jian Chen and Donglin Yanxue were enveloped by a layer of light as the protectors carried them along. That way, their speed could increase drastically. Donglin Yanxue had already given up on the mission of collecting radiant origin pearls. Qin Shan's arrival had completely derailed the trial. At the same time, the 4 groups led by Gongzheng Xin, Xinbin, and De, and Shida in various locations all made the same decision as Donglin Yanxue. The 4 of them dispersed, fleeing for their lives in various directions. To all the radiant god kings of the Radiant Saint Hall, the name Qin Shan was the most terrifying nightmare. As a result, the radiant god kings all became absolutely frightened after hearing the news that Qin Shan had entered the world of moon and star as well. The only thought remaining in their heads was to run far away and avoid Qin Shan. None of them dared to consider standing up to Qin Shan. Elder He Tian had a method to contact the outside world. He must have reported this huge incident to the Sacred Hall already. We only need to hide carefully, and the Sacred Hall will send experts to kill Qin Shan. A middle-aged radiant god king from Shida's group said. Although he put it like that, there was still great unease on his face. All of them had chosen to flee as quickly as possible while Elder He Tian fought against Qin Shan. They did not dare to get anywhere close to the battle, so no one in the world of moon and star knew that Elder He Tian was dead apart from Jianqin. Elder He Tian indeed had a method of communicating with the outside world. However, due to the level of the world of moon and star, its boundaries were extremely tough, so a formation engraved here needed to be activated to communicate with the outside world. Elder He Tian had no time to activate it when he fought against Qin Shan. As a result, since Elder He Tian had died, the situation in the world of moon and star would not get reported to the outside world like most of the radiant god kings were hoping. The outside world was clueless to the happenings in the world of moon and star. The 9 radiant god kings fled furiously with their candidate, unleashing their full speeds. But at this moment, a powerful presence suddenly appeared in the distant horizon. It approached the group at an extremely terrifying speed. The expressions of all 9 radiant god kings changed when they sensed the presence. They cried out in fear. It's not Elder He Tian. It's Qin Shan. Oh no, Qin Shan is coming. Where is Elder He Tian? Has Elder He Tian been defeated already? Run! Run! The 9 protectors around Shida all became sheet white. At that moment, the small group of 10 became disorderly. 4 of them broke free from the group, fleeing in 4 different directions in a panic. Their actions were like a trigger, causing the other protectors to abandon Shida and scatter. They believed that perhaps their chance at surviving would become slightly higher if they did that. The candidate, Shida, was a short, plump boy. He seemed to be 17 or 18, but he had already cultivated for several hundred years now. When he saw his 9 protectors flee by themselves, his plump face immediately became warped. In the distance, the azure-robed Qin Shan gradually appeared. He strode through the air with a surging presence, making his way over. He seemed like he was on a leisurely stroll, but he would cross over 1,000 kilometers with each step. He appeared before Shida instantly. Which one of the 5 candidates are you? Qin Shan hovered in the air and stared at Shida coldly. His eyes shone with killing intent. I'm Shida, Shurda's face was filled with fear as he stammered. Shurda? Very well, you can go die. As killing intent flashed through his eyes, Qing Shan extended a finger towards Shurda's forehead. Spurt. Immediately, a finger-sized hole appeared between Shurda's eyes. He collapsed powerlessly. Shurda of the 5 candidates had been instantly slain. However, Qing Shan acted like he had just accomplished a simple task. He looked in the directions that the 9 radiant god kings had fled, and he sneered, "Do you really think you can escape like this? You underestimate me far too much. No matter how far you run, no matter how well you hide, all the hallowed Saint Masters in the world of Moon and Star will face death. I will make the Radiant Saint Hall go without a chosen saint this time." With that, Qing Shan pursued the 9 fleeing Radiant God Kings. Before long, the 9 Radiant God Kings in charge of protecting Shurda were hunted down one by one. Without any exception, they were mercilessly slain by Qing Shan. Before Qing Shan, who had killed even primordial realm experts, Radiant God Kings with measly mid-7-colored soul cores were unable to fight back at all. After killing off Shurda's entire group, Qing Shan stood where he was with his eyes closed. He used a secret technique to silently look for the others. A few seconds later, Qing Shan opened his eyes and looked to the left. He smiled coldly and said, "I found the second group." With that, Qing Shan turned into a blur and shot off with lightning speed. He traveled straight towards the second group. The second group he was targeting was led by Donglin Yanxue. When Qing Shan hunted down Shurda's group, he had incidentally closed the distance from Donglin Yanxue's group. Hence, not only did Donglin Yanxue's group fail to travel away from Qing Shan, but they had even become the closest instead. Chapter 2302, Fighting Qing Shan. 1. Jian Chen's expression suddenly changed as the protectors carried him along. Qing Shan did not try to hide himself at all as he traveled towards them. He let his presence surge, which made him stand out very much. As a result, Jian Chen was able to sense his location despite the great distance between them. Jian Chen could sense that Qing Shan was heading towards their location with great precision. He was extremely fast. Even though there were 8 radiant god kings around him moving as quickly as they could, they were still far slower than Qing Shan. "We're in trouble." Jian Chen's face finally became rather ugly. He was not afraid of Qing Shan, but he was unable to expose his strength right now. Jian Chen's face sank as the light in his eyes flickered. He racked his brains for a way of dealing with Qing Shan. Oh no, Qing Shan is coming. Before long, Qing Shan entered the sensory range of the Radiant God Kings as well. The Radiant God Kings were able to identify him immediately from his surging presence that was different from Elder He Tian's. Their faces all changed drastically. "He's coming. He's coming. Run. Run quick." The 8 Radiant God Kings all became extremely pale as they cried out in fear. The shade of death had enveloped them as heavy dread filled their hearts. They could no longer care about protecting the chosen saint. As a result, the 8 Radiant God Kings acted just like Shurda's protectors, abandoning Donglin Yanxue and Jian Chen to flee into the surroundings. In the blink of an eye, the 8 protectors around Donglin Yanxue and Jian Chen had completely vanished. Only Jian Chen and Donglin Yanxue remained there alone. Donglin Yanxue's complexion became extremely miserable. With a pale face, she looked around for the 8 protectors who had already vanished. She felt utterly powerless inside. Jian Chen also watched the 8 protectors flee with an ugly expression. Afterwards, he arrived before Donglin Yanxue and growled, "We can't stay here. Let's go." He could already sense that Qing Shan was getting closer and closer. Qing Shan's target should be me. He should have come for the candidates. "Chang Yang, don't worry about me." Donglin Yanshue's complexion was dreary. Her eyes were filled with despair. She no longer had any hopes of surviving as she was about to face Qing Shan, a person who could even kill primordial realm experts. "Let's go." Jian Chen frowned and called out. He grabbed Donglin Yanshue's hand before she could respond and shot off towards the dense forest in the distance. In his trip to the world of Moon and Star this time, everyone could die, but he could not let anything happen to Donglin Yanxue, as she would be directly responsible for whether he could enter the Tower of Radiance or not. Donglin Yanshue's hand was warm and smooth, but at a time like this, Jianchen was in no mood to pay attention to such details. He held Donglin Yanshue's soft hand tightly as he flew forwards. When Donglin Yanshue felt Jianchen grab her hand, she could not help but quiver slightly. Her emotions immediately began to ripple. Although she had been cultivating for quite some time, she had never made such close physical contact with a man before. Donglin Yanshue looked to the side slightly and glanced at Jianchen. When she noticed Jianchen completely concentrating on running away and showing no lechery at all, she gradually calmed down. At least he isn't like the other protectors, running away alone, thought Donglin Yanshue. She could not help but change her opinion of Jianchen. She did not try to shake off Jianchen's hand. Suddenly, Jianchen stopped with an ugly expression. He said grimly, just as expected, "Qing Shan has really come for us." At this moment, even Donglin Yanshue could sense Qing Shan's presence. He did not chase down the 8 protectors. Instead, he made his way directly towards them. "His target is me. Run before he gets here. Get as far away as you can." Donglin Yanshue broke free from Jianchen's grip and said gloomily, "Ha! You want to escape from me with just your strength? You're underestimating me too much." Qing Shan's laughter rang out as soon as Donglin Yanshue had finished talking. A black speck even smaller than an ant appeared in the distant horizon, but in the next moment, it had crossed the huge distance and appeared before Donglin Yanshue and Jianchen, turning into Qing Shan. Jianchen studied Qing Shan. He had heard about Qing Shan, who held first place on the God King's throne firmly and was known as the strongest God King in the entire Saints world quite some time ago. Moreover, Qing Shan was similar to him, both a fighter and a radiant Saint Master. He wielded martial soul force. Jianchen was composed as he faced Qing Shan, while Donglin Yanshue became despaired. 4-colored soul core. You must be one of the candidates. State your name. Qing Shan hovered 3 meters in the air as he looked at Donglin Yanshue from above. He spoke coldly. Donglin Yanshue did not reply. She gritted her teeth and tossed a formation disc onto the ground from her space ring. Immediately, a powerful energy barrier was erected, surrounding her and Jianchen. This was a rather high-quality defensive formation disc. It could easily block attacks from God Kings and a single attack from a primordial realm expert. Before Donglin Yanshue had entered the world of Moon and Star, her seniors in the Donglin clan had bestowed this item upon her. It was her greatest trump card for protecting herself. Jianchen studied the formation disc and immediately determined it could only block a single attack from Qing Shan. It doesn't matter if you don't tell me. There's only one female among the 5 candidates. You should be Donglin Yanshue. Qing Shan watched Donglin Yanshue's actions indifferently. He did not stop her. In the next moment, killing intent flashed through his eyes, and he said coldly, "Since I know your identity, you can follow Shirda's footsteps now." With that, Qing Shan extended a finger towards Donglin Yanshue. Immediately, a streak of light shot out from his fingertip and landed on Donglin Yanshue's protective barrier with enough force to make space tremble. Martial soul force. A gleam of light flashed through Jianchen's eyes the moment Qing Shan struck out. He could clearly sense the existence of martial soul force in that move. Moreover, it was martial soul force countless times more powerful than what Jianchen could control. Jianchen immediately became eager. Suddenly, he desired a battle with Qing Shan very much. He wanted to understand the mysteries of martial soul force from Qing Shan. Bang! At this moment, Donglin Yanshue's protective formation shattered loudly after enduring a strike from Qing Shan. Powerful ripples of energy, along with strands martial soul force, surged through the shattered barrier and struck Jianchen and Donglin Yanshue heavily. Chapter 2303, Fighting Qing Shan. 2. Even though the formation had weakened the ripples of energy, making them become next to nothing, they were still extremely terrifying to Donglin Yanshue, who was only equivalent to a deity. Blood sprayed from Donglin Yanshue's mouth as she immediately became sheet white. She was heavily injured. At the same time, her soul fell under the influence of marital soul force. Extremely weak slivers of marital soul force had wormed into her soul, heavily damaged it. Donglin Yanxue only felt intense pain from her head all of a sudden. In the next moment, she fell unconscious and fainted. Actually still alive. With a cold face, Qing Shan had already extended his finger a second time. A powerful beam of energy was emitted once again, shooting towards Donglin Yanxue with enough power to distort space. Jian Chen paid attention to Donglin Yanshue's situation at all times. The moment she collapsed, he used a hand to pull her in. His eyes immediately lit up when he saw that she had fainted. At the same time, space distorted slightly as a powerful pulse of energy surged in. Qing Shan's second attack shot over with lightning speed. Jian Chen did not even glance at Qing Shan's second attack. He held Donglin Yanxue close to him with one hand and directed his back towards Qing Shan with a swirl, protecting Donglin Yanxue. At the same time, his right extended backwards. Immediately, sharp laws of the sword descended, instantly gathering at the Jian Chen's fingertip. It suddenly shot out as a resplendent streak of sword qi. The sword qi only seemed to be the size of a finger, but it was extremely powerful. As it ripped through the air, it produced a shrill whistle. The space around it distorted heavily. Cracks in space seemed to appear. Jian Chen finally had the chance to fight now that Donglin Yanxue was unconscious and the radiant god kings had fled. The sharp sword qi collided with the beam of energy that bore martial soul force, erupting with a great boom. When the two different laws collided, they both shattered and surged out into the surroundings with a powerful shockwave. Their attacks were terrifying, completely exceeding the level of God King. The earth cracked, and space distorted. The entire region had almost collapsed. Jian Chen used his body to shield the unconscious Donglin Yanxue. Under the circulation of chaotic force, he had already pushed his defenses to the limit. As if his feet were rooted in the ground, he stood firmly under the impact of the shockwave. He did not move at all. On the other side, Qing Shan hovered in the air as an invisible power permeated before him, preventing the incoming shockwave from getting anywhere near him. At that moment, his eyes shone with dazzling light. He stared right at Jian Chen in shock, surprise, and disbelief. He could not help but cry out, "Laws of the sword!" Qing Shan had already discovered Jian Chen from very far away, but at the time, Jian Chen only seemed to possess a one-colored soul core, so Qing Shan did not take him seriously. However, now that Jian Chen, who clearly seemed like a radiant saint master in Qing Shan's eyes, had suddenly demonstrated power from the laws of the sword, Qing Shan finally began to take notice of him. Qing Shan's eyes shone brightly as he stared right at Jian Chen. The light in his eyes changed rapidly. Jian Chen also turned around slowly and stared at Qing Shan calmly. But very soon he felt slightly surprised. He found Qing Shan's gaze to be rather strange. It confused him slightly. He did not sense any killing intent from Qing Shan's gaze at all. Instead, he saw slivers of joy and excitement from his gaze that rapidly changed between emotions. "Did the senses of the soul earlier come from you?" Qing Shan asked after staring at Jian Chen for a while. "That's right." Jian Chen stared at Qing Shan with composure and asked, "Do you want to kill Donglin Yanxue?" "My intentions for coming to the world of Moon and Star is to kill all 5 candidates and all the protectors so that the Radiant Saint Hall will go without a chosen saint." Qing Shan calmed down again. He looked at Jian Chen deeply as he said seriously, "Then you must be disappointed because you can't kill Donglin Yanxue?" Jian Chen said calmly. Qing Shan frowned. He glared at Jian Chen and growled, "You want to protect her? You're not weak, but you're not at the primordial realm. Do you think you have the capability?" "I do." "Very well. Demonstrate to me just how great your abilities are." Qing Shan called out as his presence skyrocketed. It caused the clouds to churn as wind blew. The entire region of space twisted. Jian Chen's gaze gradually became piercing. He lowered his head to glance at the unconscious Donglin Yanxue in his arms. Currently, blood was flowing from the corner of her mouth. With a thought, the laws of space surrounded Donglin Yanxue, sending her away. The laws of space. Qing Shan exclaimed. A strange gleam of light flashed through his gaze towards Jian Chen. He could clearly sense that Donglin Yanxue had been sent to a mountain several hundred kilometers away with the laws of space. The mountain originally belonged to a pangolin that possessed the strength of an early overgod. However, the pangolin was killed by a blade of space that suddenly appeared the moment Donglin Yanxue was sent there. Jian Chen struck out firmly after sending Donglin Yanxue to somewhere safe. He attacked Qing Shan. In that instance, supreme sword intent radiated from him. It seemed to gather in from all directions while Jian Chen seemed to have become an ultimate sword that stood in the world. Afterwards, he shone with blinding light. With sword intent powerful enough to make space tremble, he stabbed towards Qing Shan. This was the first time Jian Chen had truly fought after his soul fused with the strand of chaotic force. His strike this time was utterly astonishing. As sword chi pierced through the air, space was ripped open, forming black cracks of various sizes. The cold sword chi immediately reduced the vegetation in the surroundings to powder and the rocks to dust. Even the ground below had fragments sliced off by sword chi, causing it to sink. Although Jian Chen's comprehension of the laws of the sword was still at the great perfection of sword spirit, his battle prowess had increased by far too much. Moreover, Jian Chen could clearly sense that ever since his soul changed, not only was he able to control Radiant Saint Force as he wished, but even his control over the laws of the sword had increased greatly. As a result, his affinity with the laws of the sword had reached an extremely high level. Qing Shan became stern. He bellowed out, and a terrifying energy rumbled within him. All of it gathered in his right hand. Using a finger as his sword, he swung down with extremely dense martial soul force. In that instance, time seemed to slow down. Qing Shan's finger contained the profound mysteries of ways, causing it to seemingly interfere with the flow of time, making it seem abnormally slow. Chapter 2304, Fighting Qing Shan, 3. A gleam of light flashed through Jian Chen's eyes. In the moment Qing Shan struck, Jian Chen immediately felt a powerful wave of martial soul force seem to shoot out, tearing through his protective light and striking his soul. Martial soul force was a type of power different from origin energy that specifically attacked the soul. It was impossible to guard against. Even Jian Chen was unable to defend himself from it. However, Jian Chen was no ordinary cultivator. Apart from the fact that his soul had undergone an unbelievable change due to the strand of chaotic force, he was also in existence who wielded martial soul force. As a result, when the presence of the martial soul force tore through Jian Chen's defenses and reached his soul, Jian Chen felt no discomfort at all. The damage from the influence had been reduced to a minimum. He was basically immune to it. Boom. At the same time, Jian Chen collided with Qing Shan's finger like a sword, erupting with a huge boom. Immediately, even more powerful martial soul force surged over. Like a huge python, it snaked past Jian Chen's defenses and collided with his soul. The martial soul force was even more powerful than before. Even the souls of primordial realm experts would be severely affected. However, Jian Chen remained the same as before. He was not overly affected. The threat of marital soul force was not as terrifying to him as to other cultivators. However, Qing Shan's strike was more than just martial soul force. There was also devastating energy. When it came into contact with Jian Chen's sword chi, it immediately shattered and scattered the sword chi, shooting off in all directions like rain. Qing Shan's finger continued towards Jian Chen's chest with some remaining power. Jian Chen's eyes narrowed. The power of Qing Shan's finger was far greater than he had anticipated. However, he did not become flustered. He received it with composure. Immediately, his presence changed. In that instance, he seemed to have fused with the surroundings, becoming the laws of the world, an existence that controlled the region. The space there had already collapsed. At that moment, the specks of sword chi that had shot outwards all halted. As if they were experiencing some kind of calling, they gathered towards Jian Chen with even greater speed, instantly condensing into a resplendent streak of light above Jian Chen's head. It ripped through space and cleaved towards Qing Shan's finger mercilessly. Jian Chen completely depended on his own usage of the laws of the sword to unleash such strength. The many sword techniques he had learnt in the past were completely useless now due to their limited grades. "You're much more powerful than I imagined you to be," Qing Shan called out. His finger that originally slashed towards Jian Chen's chest suddenly changed in direction. He used 2 fingers to clamp down Jian Chen's sword qi as he smiled strangely. Martial soul technique, repossession. With that, martial soul force immediately shot out from the area between Qing Shan's eyes, landing on Jian Chen's sword qi as an invisible blade. Jian Chen's face suddenly changed. He was surprised. In that instance, he suddenly discovered his connection with the sword qi had been severed. The sword qi condensed from his laws of the sword were no longer under his control. Qing Shan had taken possession of them. There's actually such a wondrous use of martial soul force? Jian Chen was astonished inside. The sword qi condensed by Jian Chen stabbed back at him under Qing Shan's control. That was not all. Qing Shan clenched his right hand into a fist. Terrifying energy surged on its surface, and he punched out right behind the sword qi. Jian Chen showed no fear at all. Chaotic force circulated as the laws of strength descended. He also threw a punch, striking out with unbelievably great force. The might of his punch had reached the limit. The moment he struck out, the space before him shattered like glass. The origin energy in the surroundings even dispersed. The moment the sword qi came into contact with Jian Chen's fist, the sword qi began to collapse inch by inch. It had been shattered. Afterwards, Jian Chen's punch continued onwards without weakening at all, colliding with Qing Shan's punch with chilling force. Bang! A heavy boom rang out in the surroundings. Their clash this time was extremely frightening. It formed a visible shockwave that spread out in all directions. Wherever it went, the landscape vanished. All the mountains within 100 kilometers were reduced to dust. The entire ground sank. Qing Shan was knocked away by Jian Chen's punch. He only stabilized himself after flying for several kilometers. His blood and organs surged, and his entire right arm became numb. Afterwards, he stared at Jian Chen in surprise and called out, "The laws of strength. You've actually grasped the laws of the sword, the laws of space, and the laws of strength and reached God King with all of them." "No. Even if it's the laws of strength, it's impossible for your power to reach such a terrifying level. It's your body. Your body holds extraordinary power." Jian Chen said nothing. The space around him pulsed slightly, and he vanished in that instance. Using the laws of space, he teleported across a short range and appeared behind Qing Shan instantly. Bringing his hands together, an even more powerful strand of sword qi suddenly appeared. It stabbed towards Qing Shan's back with enough power to rip through space. Qing Shan's heart shivered. The sword qi was so powerful that he did not dare to be careless. Before the sword qi had even arrived, he felt countless strands of sword qi moving around him and enveloping him completely. He felt piercing pain all over. Even his azure robes became covered with many slashes. In that moment, he felt like he had entered a sword domain, where invisible sword qi was omnipresent. "Soul Mountain Seal!" Qing Shan bellowed out. He formed a seal with both hands, and an illusionary mountain appeared above him. It was hazy and seemed like it was surrounded by clouds. However, the mountain gave off terrifying power that seemed strong enough to crush worlds. The hazy mountain rapidly descended. It radiated with astonishing might as the space below it suddenly froze. It crushed down on Jian Chen like it was unstoppable. Jian Chen's body sank. In that moment, he felt like he had become burdened with a mysterious force. It formed a restraint that he struggled to break free from. It prevented him from dodging the illusionary mountain, forcing him to receive it head-on. Jian Chen was stern. The sword qi that originally stabbed towards Qing Shan's back suddenly traveled towards the sky. As a streak of light, it collided with the illusionary mountain. At the same time, laws of strength gathered from around him. He unleashed his greatest strength and threw uppercuts. Bang, bang, bang. Jian Chen's punches caused space to erupt as the surroundings rumbled heavily. His chaotic body was already tough. Coupled with the laws of strength, the power in each punch was frightening and astonishing. In just 3 punches, he had forcefully shattered the illusionary mountain. Afterwards, Jian Qin used his body as a sword, becoming clad in blinding light as he stabbed out. At the same time, he used the laws of strength and the laws of space simultaneously. He used the 3 laws together in battle. He was protected by the dazzling light from the laws of the sword outside, while his body was strengthened by the laws of strength, making him terrifyingly tough. He used the laws of space to push his speed to the limits so that his strike was utterly shocking in the end. It was no longer the primordial realm. The power within his strike was enough to kill experts of the primordial realm. Nice. Qing Shan showed no fear as he faced Jian Chen's astonishing attack. As he laughed aloud, his presence suddenly skyrocketed. He also struck out with his full strength, using a secret technique to deal a shocking attack that caused space to collapse. They fought with great intensity. Every time they clashed, a deafening boom would ring out. Frightening, violent storms of energy wreaked havoc in the surroundings, causing space to crack time and time again. They fought their way up into the sky before fighting their way deep underground. They fought as they retreated, moving tens of thousand kilometers away. Along the way, all vegetation was reduced to powder while mountain range after mountain range collapsed and vanished. They had been shattered by the powerful shockwaves, reduced to thick dust that filled the skies. Fire-red lava spewed out from below the ground with great heat, dyeing the entire region red. As Jian Chen and Qing Shan's attacks would miss from time to time and land on the earth, they had formed tunnels thousands of kilometers long, penetrating into the depths of the ground and disturbing the lava there. Both Jian Chen and Qing Shan were quite injured now that the battle had reached such a point. Their clothes were soaked in blood. Qing Shan was surrounded by a milky white light. This was radiant saint force. His wounds healed at a visible rate under its influence, recovering as he fought. Even though Jian Chen did not use radiant saint force to heal, the great regenerative capacity of the chaotic body was perfectly unleashed. As a result, his wounds healed at a rate no slower than Qing Shan's. As the two of them fought, the 3 groups led by Gongjing Xian, Xen Bin, and Nda, along with the protectors who had abandoned Donglin Yanxue and Jian Chen, all halted in their tracks. They looked towards the sky, staring in Jian Chen and Qing Shan's direction from afar. The light in their eyes flickered. What's happening? Why have all of you stopped? Gongjing Xen barked at the protectors around him. There was undisguised panic and fear on his face. This was fear towards Qing Shan. Young Master Xen, there are experts fighting in the distance. The shockwaves from their battle are extremely terrifying, so terrifying that they've caused the world to change. Even from 10,000 kilometers away, we can sense it clearly, a protector said from beside Gongjing Xen, still badly shaken. One of them should be Qing Shan of the martial soul lineage. Who's the other person? It doesn't matter who he is. We can be certain that he's much more powerful than Elder He Tian. The disturbance from his battle against Qing Shan is even greater than Elder He Tian's. Has the Sacred Hall received the news and sent an expert? The other protectors said. The light in their eyes flickered with uncertainty as they looked at one another. Afterwards, one of them suggested, since Qing Shan has been stopped, there's no need for us to fear anymore. Let's go and see which expert is fighting Qing Shan. Afterwards, some of the protectors immediately flew towards where Jian Chen and Qing Shan fought. The others remained behind to protect Gongjing Xen. After they made the same decision, Nda's group also did something similar. Only Xen Bin's group, under the candidate's insistence, did not have any protectors go over to check. They continued to flee. The protectors who had abandoned Donglin Yanxue were no exception either. They all turned around and approached the battle. The shockwaves are so intense. Qing Shan must have encountered an opponent even more powerful than Elder He Tian. The Sacred Hall must have learnt about the situation in the world of Moon and Star and sent an expert to deal with Qing Shan. Qing Shan is struggling to deal with his problems now. Let's hurry back and see if we can find the opportunity to kill Qing Shan. Killing Qing Shan of the martial soul lineage would be a deed of great merit. The protectors all stopped running for their lives with various thoughts. They started to approach Qing Shan by following the shockwaves. Boom! 10 million kilometers away, Jian Chen and Qing Shan clashed once more before being knocked away by the great force. When Qing Shan stabilized himself, a black sword suddenly appeared with a flip of his hand. It gave off the might of a god artifact. He called out, "Soul-severing sword, low-quality god artifact. Even the elder who just died to my hands was not enough for me to use this sword, but you are. I hope you don't disappoint me." With that, Qing Shan swung the sword and shot out an ink-black streak of sword qi, directing it towards Jian Chen. After taking out the god artifact, Qing Shan's battle prowess was elevated to a new level. The sword qi ripped a pitch-black gash in space that was several meters long. Jian Chen was stern. In that moment he no longer held back either. With a flip of his hand, the 9-star sword of heavenly ways suddenly appeared. As he channeled his chaotic force into the weapon, the 9-star sword of heavenly ways immediately shone with resplendent starlight, conjuring illusionary stars. Every star conjured made the power in the sword rise. A total of 6 illusionary stars appeared from the 9-star sword of heavenly ways one after another. Jian Chen also swung out. Immediately, starlight seemed to twinkle as it collided with the soul-severing sword loudly. The clash between the two god artifacts unleashed a might that was even more shocking. The terrifying powers collided, causing space to erupt with a thunderous boom. Space collapsed where the god artifacts clashed, forming a meter-wide black hole. Along with the shockwave, a great force erupted, pushing both Jian Chen and Qing Shan into constant retreat. Qing Shan was slightly pale and some blood ran down from the corner of his mouth. However, he stared at Jian Chen with shining eyes as he laughed out loud, "The 9-star sword of heavenly ways. It really is you." Meanwhile, Jian Chen was emotionless and cold. He knew Qing Shan had already realized his true identity. However, he was not surprised. He was already ready to expose his identity after he made up his mind to protect Donjin Yanxue. The 9-star sword of heavenly ways in Jian Chen's hand suddenly jolted, and it shone with blinding starlight. He glared at Qing Shan. Just when he was about to continue the battle, he suddenly frowned. He glanced around and saw what was going on extremely far away. It was like his gaze could pierce through space. He had already sensed the approach of many radiant god kings with lightning speed from all directions. Even though they were several million kilometers away, it would not take them long to arrive with their speeds as radiant god kings. As a matter of fact, the senses of their souls could easily reach over. However, the space around them was filled with extremely violent storms of energy, preventing the radiant god kings from nearing this place with the senses of their souls. Jian Chen gave up on his plan of continuing his fight with Qing Shan since these people were approaching. He stowed the 9-star sword of heavenly ways away and said coldly, "Qing Shan, I'll continue my fight with you some other time." With that, the power of the laws of space immediately pulsed from his location. In the next moment he vanished. He had left. Jian Chen used the laws of space to teleport 1,000 kilometers away. Afterwards, with a few flashes, he moved 10,000 kilometers away as quickly as he could. He picked up the still unconscious Donglin Yanxue from the mountain he had placed her in before flying off into the distance. Qing Shan gripped the soul-severing sword as he hovered in the air. He did not stop Jian Chen from leaving. His eyes shone extremely brightly as he looked at Jian Chen with a strange light. His lips curled into a smile as he said, "I actually encountered the 8th wielder of martial soul force here. However, his battle prowess is great enough to astonish me. That's quite surprising. It's just a pity that he has no idea how to use martial soul force." Qing Shan stowed his sword away as he said that. He looked at the radiant god kings who approached this place rapidly and his gaze immediately became cold. These people seemed to make him worry. But fair enough, there shouldn't be anyone in the Radiant Saint Hall who knows his true identity, or he wouldn't be able to survive until now. Since that's the case, let me erase his worries completely. Chapter 2306. Close contact with that, Qin Shan turned into an azure blur that shot off in the sky. He approached the radiant god kings gathering over with lightning speed. He did not seem to be afraid of alarming the radiant god kings at all. As he flew through the air, he radiated with a powerful presence that flooded the surroundings. The protectors of the three candidates shot towards the battle from three different directions. The shockwaves from the battle earlier were just too powerful, having completely exceeded the level of God King. As a result, the radiant God Kings scattered across the world of Moon and Star all thought the Sacred Hall had sent an expert to deal with Qin Shan. After all, they had heard from the Elder when they arrived here that the vicious beasts had been screened first, leaving behind vicious beasts that were God Kings at most. It was impossible for an existence beyond God King to appear. Hence, they immediately connected it to reinforcements from the Sacred Hall as soon as they sensed the primordial realm battle shockwaves. I wonder which Elder has entered the world of Moon and Star. However, no matter who he is, Qin Shan is done for. Since the Sacred Hall already knows Qin Shan is here, the Elder they've sent can definitely kill him. An Elder has already come here. Qin Shan is done for anyway, so I have to put on a good act before the Elder. If I can be of some use, it'll be a service of great merit. The light in the eyes of the radiant God Kings rushing over flickered. They all had different thoughts. But very soon, one of the groups suddenly halted. They stared straight ahead in surprise and doubt. They could already sense a terrifying presence that was enough to give them chills approaching them at an extraordinary speed. However, they were not unfamiliar with the owner of the presence, which made them feel shocked and fearful. The presence belonged to Qin Shan. Oh no, Qin Shan is coming for us. Where is the Elder who fought against Qin Shan? Why can't I sense his presence? The Elder's presence has vanished. Oh no, run. Run quick. The radiant God Kings paled as fear filled their faces. They fled in the other direction as quickly as they could. Behind them, Qin Shan pursued with cold eyes as his lips curled into a scornful smile. He moved extremely quickly, enough to cross 1,000 kilometers in a single instance. He had completely surpassed the radiant God Kings who had unleashed their full speed. Very soon, he caught up with a radiant God King and struck out firmly. He was vicious and merciless, killing the radiant God King in a single strike. He did not stop for a single moment, continuing to hunt down the remaining God Kings. At the same time, the peaceful space several million kilometers away on a mountain suddenly rippled. Jian Chen silently appeared there with the unconscious Donglin Yanxue in his arms. After several short-distance teleportations, Jian Chen had traveled far away from where he fought Qin Shan. He stared into the distance as he carried Donglin Yanxue. It was like he could see where Qin Shan was. The light in his eyes flickered, and after hesitating slightly, he no longer remained where he was. He continued to fly towards the distance. At this moment, a rather pained groan rang out from between Jian Chen's arms. Donglin Yanxue had woken up slowly. She opened her eyes weakly, and when she saw Jian Chen's face, she immediately became confused. Jian Chen slowed down right away, maintaining the speed that belonged to a radiant Saint Master with a one-colored soul core. He crossed the mountains as he ran along the ground with Donglin Yanxue in his arms. He asked, "You've woken up?" Donglin Yanshue's mind cleared up very soon. She immediately sensed that she was in Jian Chen's arms, which made her blush in embarrassment. But in the next moment, she suddenly thought of something and studied the surroundings with shining eyes. She asked nervously, "Where's Qin Shan? Didn't he kill us? How did we escape?" Jian Chen chuckled and replied, "We were lucky. Just when Qin Shan wanted to kill us, a vicious beast suddenly appeared. The vicious beast seemed to have grievances with Qin Shan, so it engaged in a great battle with him. As for me, I carried you and fled during the mess and fortunately escaped the disaster." Donglin Yanxue firmly believed Jian Chen's words. Feeling fortunate, she said, "The vicious beast should have been a peak God King, or it would not have been Qin Shan's opponent. That really was close. If it weren't for the vicious beast, we definitely would not have been able to survive until now." When she reached there, Donglin Yanxue suddenly realized that Jian Chen was still carrying her. She immediately blushed and she said softly, "Chang Yang, let me down." Jianchen paused. He lowered his head and looked at Donglin Yanxue. He said sternly, "You're heavily injured. You might not be able to travel alone. Are you certain that you want me to let you down?" Donglin Yanxue did not dare to make eye contact with Jianchen. She nodded with a blushing face. "All right. However, you need to know that we're technically still close to Qingshan. We can't stay here in case he comes in pursuit," said Jianchen. He used one hand to support Donglin Yanxue's waist. He steadied her as he gently placed her on the ground. Feeling Jianchen's thick, powerful arm, Donglin Yanshue's heart immediately became a mess. Her heart began to beat uncontrollably as her blushed face grew even redder. Donglin Yanxue struggled to her feet, but right after she took a small step, she could not help but yelp in pain. She staggered and almost fell over. She had endured a strike from Qingshan. Even though a formation had blocked the attack, so not even 1/100th of the original attack struck her, she was still severely injured. She could not even walk. Jianchen's hands moved quickly. He took a step forward to support Donglin Yanxue as he said helplessly, "You can't even stand right now. It's impossible for you to cover ground alone. Let me carry you." Donglin Yanshue's eyes dodged Jianchen's gaze. She did not dare to make eye contact. She gritted her teeth as she faced an internal dilemma. In the end, perhaps she understood that she was unable to travel alone in her current state and that if she kept wasting time, it was extremely likely for Qingshan to find them. With no other choice, she agreed to Jianchen's suggestion. Compared to Donglin Yanxue, who had become embarrassed like a young lady, Jianchen was extremely calm. His breathing was steady and his mind was at ease. He slid his left hand under Donglin Yanshue's arms, allowing her shoulder blades to rest on them while he placed his right arm under her knees. With a little power, he lifted up Donglin Yanshue's hourglass figure again. Donglin Yanxue immediately stiffened. Although she had cultivated for quite a long time now, her mental state was still of a young lady around 20 years old. Even just making contact with men with her hands made her blush, let alone being carried by one. As a result, Donglin Yanshue's face and ears glowed bright red. Since Jianchen was holding her so close, her head was basically pressed against Jianchen's chest. She could even smell the unique scent of a man from Jianchen's body. In that moment, Donglin Yanxue only felt dizzy as her head blanked out. Jianchen remained at ease. He condensed a pair of wings from Radiant Saint Force on his back, and as they flapped, he flew along the ground with Donglin Yanxue. He only demonstrated the abilities that a Radiant Saint Master with a one-colored soul core should possess. I hope Qingshan doesn't come soon, or I'll probably have to expose myself before Donglin Yanxue. Even though he had a beauty in his arms, Jianchen did not think too much about it. He only prayed inside with some worry. Donglin Yanxue played a direct role in whether he could enter the Tower of Radiance or not, so she could not die here. However, Donglin Yanxue was already heavily injured now. She could not even perform simple actions, so if Qingshan really came in pursuit at a time like this, she definitely would not be able to endure a single strike from him. Jianchen would have to stand forward. However, Donglin Yanxue had woken up now. If he revealed his strength before Donglin Yanxue, he would definitely be exposed. As a result, Qingshan following him was the thing that worried Jianchen the most right now. Donglin Yanxue gradually calmed down as Jianchen carried her. Even though she was very reluctant about the entire matter, she knew that she could change nothing. As a result, she could only slowly accept the reality of Jianchen carrying her. Donglin Yanxue studied Jianchen silently. When she discovered he was only focusing on covering ground and had no other thoughts, her opinion of Jianchen changed slightly once again. Although he became my protector with the intention of getting close to me, at least he isn't like the 8 protectors, abandoning me when I face death. When I was injured by Qingshan and fell unconscious, he didn't abandon me and flee all by himself either, Donglin Yanxue thought. Unbeknownst to even Donglin Yanxue herself, her impression of Jianchen had improved. Even her opposition to Jianchen carrying her was reduced. At this moment, Donglin Yanxue sniffed Jian Chen's chest firmly, and she immediately became surprised. She thought, "There's the smell of blood." Afterwards, for some reason, she unexpectedly pulled apart the clothing on Jian Chen's chest. Immediately, a few hideous wounds appeared. Jian Chen naturally received some injuries during his fight against Qing Shan. Some of the wounds had completely recovered under the powerful regeneration of the chaotic body, without even leaving a scar behind. However, some of the heavier wounds had not closed up completely due to the limited time. Although he had changed into a set of clean clothes as quickly as he could, he was unable to wash away the smell of blood on him. In the end, Donglin Yanxue smelt it and found the wounds immediately. "You're injured?" Donglin Yanshue's expression changed as she looked at the hideous injuries. "It's only some small injuries." "It's nothing," Jian Chen said uncaringly, but he groaned inside. He had never thought Donglin Yanxue would suddenly act like a completely different person, pulling apart his clothes boldly to reveal his wounds. The Donglin Yanxue he knew was not like that. "Does it hurt?" Donglin Yanxue looked at the wounds with mixed feelings as she asked softly. He was clearly injured, yet he still acted like he was fine, carrying her so that they could keep traveling. In that moment, Donglin Yanxue had become deeply touched. Jian Chen halted. He lowered his head and stared at Donglin Yanxue strangely. Since when did Donglin Yanxue start caring for him? Donglin Yanxue also noticed that she seemed to be caring too much when she sensed Jian Chen's strange gaze. Her face reddened slightly, and she covered up the wounds on Jian Chen's chest again. She said gently, "What are you staring for? Hurry up and keep moving. If Qing Shan catches up, neither of us will be left alive." A while later, Donglin Yanxue could not help but ask, "Why don't we stop for a while and treat your wounds so that they won't worsen over time? They're only superficial. They won't cause any problems." Afterwards, the two of them said nothing more. Jian Chen unleashed the greatest speed possible given his one-colored soul core, traveling for 3 days and 3 nights without resting at all with Donglin Yanxue. Only then did he act like he was exhausted, stopping in an extremely well-hidden cave. After all, the strength from a one-colored soul core was extremely limited. A Radiant Saint Master with a one-colored soul core would have reached their limits long ago after traveling for 3 days and 3 nights at such speeds. If he continued to travel, he would reveal inconsistencies in his identity very easily. As a result, he had to stop. The gloomy cave was quiet. A fist-sized luminous pearl was wedged in the ceiling, providing limited light. Under the dim light, Jian Chen and Donglin Yanxue could just barely make out each other. The two of them sat separately. Jian Chen had already closed his eyes to heal his wounds with Radiant Saint Force. In reality, he had already made a full recovery with his chaotic body. He only used Radiant Saint Force as an act for Donglin Yanxue to see so that he could have a reasonable excuse for his recovered wounds. Before him, Donglin Yanxue sat on the ground while she hugged her knees. She stared at Jian Chen with mixed feelings all the way until he recovered. "Have you healed?" Opening his eyes, Jian Chen looked at Donglin Yanxue and asked despite knowing the answer. Donglin Yanxue was gloomy. She said helplessly, "My soul has injured by martial soul force. I can't use Radiant Saint Force. There is even a sliver of martial soul force deposited in my body. Although I've suppressed it with pills, it prevents me from healing as well. I won't be able to recover as long as the martial soul force remains. But in this world of moon and star, there's no one else who can help me purge this strand of martial soul force apart from Qing Shan, so it looks like I can only recover once I leave the world of moon and star and return to the sacred hall." In other words, I can only carry you with me for the next few days. Jian Chen stared at Donglin Yanxue after he heard that as he seemed to smile. Naturally, he knew about Donglin Yanshue's condition. When Qing Shan injured her, slivers of weak martial soul force were deposited in her body, preventing her from healing. Although he could easily purge the martial soul force with his abilities, he would never do something like that, as it would lead to him facing the risk of exposure. After all, he was playing the role of a Radiant Saint Master with a one-colored soul core right now. A radiant Saint Master like that definitely lacked such ability. Donglin Yenshue's face reddened slightly in response to Jian Chen's mockery-like words. She lowered her head and remained silent. She also understood that while she was injured, she could not travel alone. She really did have to rely on Jian Chen during the remaining time in the world of Moon and Star. After a while of thought, Donglin Yanshue said gently, "We don't know where Elder He Tian is. He has probably met his end. The world of Moon and Star has already become a place where Qing Shan can rampage about recklessly, so we'll probably face Qing Shan's pursuit in the next few days. With our strength, we'll be done for if Qing Shan finds us. The world of Moon and Star has only just been opened. Unless we can get the elders outside to realize what has happened in here, we will have to wait out the entire year. I just wonder how long we will last." Donglin Yanshue sighed gently as she seemed worried. The current situation was already dire straits in her eyes. She basically saw no hope of surviving. Her trip in the world of Moon and Star should have been extremely safe since she was a candidate. After all, even if she came across extremely powerful vicious beasts, they could be easily slain by the 9 protectors. If that did not work, she could just retreat. She only needed to look for radiant Saint Pearls without worrying about anything else. However, Qing Shan's sudden intrusion had completely messed up the trial. Not only did her 8 protectors abandon her to flee for their own lives, but she even faced the nightmare of being killed off by Qing Shan at any time. Moreover, many hidden vicious beasts roamed the world of Moon and Star. Some of the more powerful ones even possessed battle prowess enough to rival peak god kings. And beside her, there was only the one-colored soul core Changyang. He was basically useless with such puny cultivation. He would not be able to deal with any vicious beast that appeared, causing Donglin Yanshue to feel despair. "Don't be too pessimistic. Aren't you still alive right now?" Jian Chen comforted. When he saw Donglin Yanshue's despair, he sighed inside and continued, "Don't worry. The other hallowed Saint Masters in the world of Moon and Star may die, but we will definitely leave here alive." Clearly, Jian Chen's comforting was useless. Donglin Yanshue did not take his words to heart at all. What could a radiant Saint Master with a one-colored soul core do in the world of Moon and Star? Jian Chen and Donglin Yanshue did not remain there for long. Very soon, he picked up Donglin Yanshue and continued moving. He condensed a pair of radiant wings and hurried off with the greatest speed he could unleash given his one-colored soul core, flying into the depths of the world of Moon and Star. Jian Chen sensed the presence of many vicious beasts along the way. All of them were basically at godhood with very few below. Under Jian Chen's efforts, they avoided all the vicious beasts along the way easily. Moreover, to ensure that none of the vicious beasts would come to attack them, he expanded the senses of his soul constantly, observing the movements of the vicious beasts. The senses of his soul were so powerful that it was greater than all of the radiant god kings who had entered the world of Moon and Star. As a result, none of the vicious beasts were able to hide from him, including the peak god king existences. As a result, they never encountered even a single vicious beast as Jian Chen covered ground with Donglin Yanshue. "There's another Radiant Origin Pearl. That's the 6th Radiant Origin Pearl I've come across. It's just a pity that the Radiant Origin Pearls are protected by vicious beasts. Even the weakest have battle prowess equivalent to overgods, so I can't collect them while Donglin Yanshue is watching." Jian Chen glanced to the left casually. 100 kilometers in that direction, a Radiant Origin Pearl had been hidden within a gloomy cave. A huge ape over 10 meters tall played around with the pearl as it glowed. At this moment, Jian Chen came to a sudden halt. He stared before him with shining eyes as he gradually became stern. A thick layer of white mist that stretched from the ground into the sky filled the distant horizon. At this moment, the white mist moved towards Jian Chen's location at an extremely rapid rate. The rolling white mist basically joined the earth with the sky. It seemed like a boundless screen, silently making its way over strangely like a group of ghosts. At the same time, roars suddenly rang out around Jian Chen. They were filled with fear and great unease. The senses of Jian Chen's soul burst out and enveloped a range of several million kilometers in a single instance. He could clearly see the vicious beasts constantly bellowing out in fear. They all left their territories and ran in the direction opposite to the mist. Even the huge ape that played around with the radiant origin pearl 100 kilometers from Jianchen growled, tossing the pearl aside and fleeing from its territory suddenly. It ran off into the distance. In that moment, Jianchen could clearly feel the ground tremble. This was caused by the frantic flight of the colossal beasts. These vicious beasts seemed to be afraid of the incoming mist. They all abandoned their territories and fled for their lives. What's happening? Donglin Yanxue, who was in Jianchen's arms, also discovered something was off. She studied the surroundings, and in the end, she saw the mist. She became uneasy. The white mist up ahead is extremely strange, said Jianchen. He stared at the white mist and gradually became stern. The senses of his soul were unable to pierce the mist. What is the white mist? It's actually causing unease in so many vicious beasts. Oh no, the strange mist is approaching us. Donglin Yanxue became extremely grim. Before they had come here, the elders had never mentioned anything regarding white mist at all. As a result, she had no idea what this phenomenon was. Changyang, what should we do now? Donglin Yanxue had no idea what to do. Since she was born into a large clan, she had basically grown up under the care and protection of her seniors. She had never faced a dire situation alone, so she immediately became flustered now that she faced danger. However, when she saw Jianchen's calm, unflustered face, her heart actually calmed down slightly for some reason. The light in Jianchen's eyes flickered as he stared at the shrouding mist up ahead. He said, "The mist covers far too great of an area, and it moves extremely quickly. It's impossible for us to make our way around it with the time remaining. As a result, only two options remain for us. Apart from retreating back the way we came, we can only charge into the mist. It's extremely likely for us to encounter Qingshan if we retreat, so we can only charge through the mist." Jianchen made up his mind quickly, and in the next moment he carried Donglin Yanxue and charged into the mist without a second thought. It sure was a coincidence. Just when Jianchen entered the mist with Donglin Yanxue, the mist gradually slowed down, coming to a complete halt. It stopped spreading forwards. Afterwards, the strange mist that seemed to link the ground and the sky gradually thinned out. It became fainter and fainter to the point where even the region engulfed by the mist became visible. Finally, in under a minute, the strange mist that had silently appeared vanished from the world of moon and star completely. The surroundings completely cleared up. Strangely, Jianchen and Donglin Yanxue had completely vanished after charging into the mist. They were gone. Jianchen experienced a strange feeling the instant he stepped into the mist. He felt like he had left the world of moon and star, entering a different world. Of course, he only experienced that for a split second before dismissing it. He began to study the mist. Jianchen's gaze was piercing. Like a pair of lanterns, they shone brightly as he looked around. However, he discovered very soon that he was actually unable to see through the mist with his vision. The mist was extremely strange. It seemed to possess a mysterious power where even Jianchen struggled to see further than a meter. It had to be mentioned that in the world of moon and star, he could clearly see everything within 1,000,000 kilometers. However, his vision was limited to a meter here. That was not all. Even the senses of his soul had been rendered useless in the mist. Once it left his body, it stopped working. At this moment, Jianchen was no different from a blind man. "Changyang, I can't see anything here at all," Donglin Yanshue's rather flustered and uneasy voice rang out. Jianchen, on the other hand, immediately felt a strange feeling from his neck. Donglin Yanxue had already wrapped her hands around it tightly. Jianchen could even sense Donglin Yanshue's uneasiness through her hands. "The mist is strange. I can't see anything either," Jianchen said with composure. He was filled with caution. Since the appearance of the mist could unsettle all the vicious beasts in the world of moon and star, it meant that the mist definitely was not as peaceful as it seemed on the surface. Some kind of fatal danger was definitely hidden within it. However, Jianchen showed no fear. Barely anything could threaten him in the world of moon and star given his strength. Even if he encountered danger that he could not handle, he still had the Aneta Tower as a trump card. Jian Chen held Donglin Yanxue as he traveled in a straight line based off instinct alone. He lost sense of time and direction. He even lost sense of distance. He had no idea how long he had been walking through the mist, nor did he know how far he had traveled. The expected dangers did not appear, and their journey was surprisingly smooth. At this moment, a faint, azure light appeared up ahead in the hazy mist. Jian Chen's eyes immediately narrowed. The faint, azure light was eye-catching and attention-grabbing in the snow-white mist. It caught his attention immediately. Jian Chen hesitated slightly before speeding up. He was traveling towards the azure light. As Jian Chen rapidly drew closer, the azure light became more and more resplendent. In that moment, it seemed like a lighthouse in the dark, directing Jian Chen. In the end, Jian Chen charged out of the mist under the guidance of the azure light, and the landscape around him immediately cleared up. A majestic, ancient divine hall made out of rusted bronze lay before him like a primordial beast. It stood there quietly. The entire bronze divine hall bore the presence of age as if it had existed for countless years. The bronze divine hall stood within the hazy mist. The azure light that it shone with seemed to possess a mysterious power, purging the mist from its surroundings. I never thought there would be such a place hiding within the world of moon and star. Jian Chen stared at the divine hall in a daze. After a while of thought, he asked, Donglin Yanxue, with your status in the Radiant Saint Hall, have you heard anything about this bronze divine hall before? He did not receive a response. When he lowered his head, he discovered that Donglin Yanxue's eyes were closed. She had fainted some time ago. Jian Chen raised his hand and glanced at the bronze divine hall before looking at the rolling mist behind him. He frowned slightly. If he returned the way he came from now, he would probably get lost in the mist because he had no sense of direction when he was in it. He would not be able to find his way out. As a result, he could only advance forwards now. Making up his mind, Jian Chen immediately carried the unconscious Donglin Yanxue onwards, approaching the bronze divine hall. When he climbed the long flight of stairs and stood before the door that was hundreds of meters tall, it produced a deep rumble and slowly opened. Immediately, a desolate, primal presence gushed out from the divine hall as a refreshing gust of wind. Jian Chen could not help but close his eyes and submerge himself within it. Under the surge of the presence, he felt as if he had experienced an indefinite amount of time. It was like countless years had passed in an instant. A while later, when he opened his eyes and looked at the gaping door into the bronze divine hall, his eyes immediately deepened. The bronze divine hall of mysterious origins and unknown age had actually opened its door by itself. He could sense that he did not come here coincidentally. The master of the bronze divine hall made all of this happen. Jian Chen stood in the doorway. After hesitating slightly, he stepped in. Boom! The door slammed shut heavily after he entered the bronze divine hall. Jian Chen carried Donglin Yanxue as he stood there. He remained calm as he said clearly to the empty room, "Senior, please show yourself. Why have you led me here?" With that, strands of azure light condensed before him, gradually forming an old man. He was illusionary and completely condensed from light. He did not have a physical body. Jian Chen's heart jumped the moment the old man appeared. He could clearly sense that the slumbering sword spirits were actually beginning to awaken slowly. Jian Chen was overjoyed by the awakening of the sword spirits. Ever since he assisted Mo Tianyun's original body in breaking free and fused the twin swords, the sword spirits had fallen into a slumber due to overexertion. No matter how he called them during this time, he had received no response at all. Now that the sword spirits were finally beginning to awaken, Jian Chen would obviously be delighted. But at the same time, he realized that the old man before him was not simple. He had a vague feeling that the sword spirits only began to awaken because of this old man. The sword spirits appeared above Jian Chen's head as two young people completely condensed from light. The man was handsome, while the woman was pretty. They seemed like a matching pair. They stared at the old man condensed from azure light, and they gradually became stern. They called out, "Primeval Chi." I never thought we would see a spirit transformed from a strand of primeval Chi. Jian was surprised. He could not help but study the old man closely. Even though he did not really understand what primeval Chi was, he had somewhat realized that the old man was an existence similar to the sword spirits. The old man stared at the sword spirits with mixed feelings and sighed in amazement. Spirits formed from Yin Qi and Yang Qi. I never thought that after so many years, I would be able to meet existences similar to me in this cursed land. But it seems like you're extremely weak. Old Senior, are you the hall spirit of this divine hall? Jian could not contain his curiosity and asked for confirmation. The old man looked at Jian and nodded. That's right. I'm the hall spirit. Then may I ask where the master of this divine hall is? Jian continued his questions. The old man sighed gently as he became slightly dispirited. He said glumly, "Master has already passed away in the flow of time. He isn't from this aeon." The eyes of the sword spirits lit up when they heard that. They asked, "You're from the previous aeon?" The old man shook his head again and replied, "It should be the aeon before that if you want to be more accurate." The aeon before that? The sword spirits were surprised. They looked at the old man deeply and said, "Since you've existed for so long, why haven't there been any rumors regarding you in the outside world?" "That's because I'm trapped here. I can't leave, and no one knows about this place either. Obviously, there will be no news about me at all in the outside world," said the old man. He glanced at Jian and the sword spirits deeply and continued, "You're the first group of living souls I've seen in the countless years since my master passed away, as well as the first living creatures to set foot in this cursed land." Cursed land? Why is this place referred to as a cursed land? And what's with the mist outside? Is the mist responsible for trapping you here? Jian asked. "The mist you see is not what traps me. Instead, it is a wondrous power that was created by the fusion of the power of the curse and the power of the primeval divine hall. In regards to the cursed land, the world of moon and star you were in before and where the primeval divine hall stands all belong to it. The curse came from the Tao Union Saint. It has already fused with the surroundings, combining with the world and basically creating a new type of law. It's omnipresent. You can't sense its existence with your current level of cultivation. It's also because of this curse that I can't leave this place. Even the past territory of my master, the Saint of Grand Clarity, has been severely damaged. It's called the World of Grand Clarity, which is also the current world of Moon and Star." The old man said slowly, "So the world of Moon and Star used to be called the World of Grand Clarity. Since the mist is power from the primeval divine hall, and you're the artifact spirit of the primeval divine hall, the mist must be under your control. The reason why I can come here is because of your guidance. May I ask what intentions you have for getting me here?" Jian asked. "It's because I can sense a droplet of a saint's essence blood within your body. Most importantly, your body contains 2 strands of yin and yang qi that exist like me. It's exactly because of them that I made you come here." "A saint's essence blood? Are you referring to this?" Jian was puzzled. He pointed at where the ancient skywolf's essence blood in his body was located. "That's right. That's a saint's essence blood. The owner of the essence blood was the most powerful saint during my master's aeon. Of course, saints may have another name in your aeon," said the artifact spirit. Jian finally understood when he heard that. Saints were actually the current Grand Exalts. The Tao Union Saint's curse is no longer as powerful as before after the passing of 2 eons. However, in order for me to break free, I still need 10 droplets of a saint's essence blood. If you can collect those 10 droplets for me and free me, I'll bestow a strand of primeval Qi to you. Primeval Qi is a type of power that came into existence with chaos. It's second to chaotic force in terms of quality and is at the same level as your Yin Qi and Yang Qi, but it does contain other mysteries to it. I think you know exactly how much it can benefit you. You will definitely be getting the better end of the deal by exchanging it for 10 droplets of a saint's blood." It's actually a huge fortuitous encounter for you, the hall spirit said to the sword spirits. What he truly focused on were the sword spirits who were a similar existence to him. He did not place much attention on Jianchen. Even though Jianchen possessed a droplet of a saint's essence blood, he also knew that Jianchen had only obtained it through luck and there was only one drop of it. However, most of the power within the saint's essence blood had leaked away, so it was not very useful to him at all. The sword spirit's eyes immediately lit up with desire, something they rarely showed, when they heard the hall spirit's offer of a strand of primeval chi. But very soon, they calmed down. The burning desire within their eyes vanished, and they sighed in pity. Collecting 10 droplets of essence blood from Grand Exalts is just too difficult. After all, this essence blood isn't regular blood. Let alone essence blood, even the regular blood of Grand Exalt is basically impossible to obtain unless we return to that age when our old master stood supreme. Qing Su'a also sighed. Zi-ing, Qing Su'a. What are the uses of primeval qi to you? Jianchen could not help but ask when he saw the sword spirits desire it so badly. Master, a strand of primeval qi can allow us to surpass our previous peak and take a step further, becoming even more powerful, Ziying said with burning desire. Nothing in the world could resist the temptation of becoming even more powerful, whether they be the many cultivators or innate spirits like the sword spirits. Jianchen was surprised inside. The sword spirits were an extremely powerful existence at their prime. The fusion of the twin swords possessed devastating power. If they could take a step further than that, just how great would they become? Since the primeval qi would be so useful to the sword spirits, Jianchen became interested. He was tempted to obtain it immediately. The sword spirits had already accepted him as their master. If the sword spirits became even more powerful, his battle prowess would indirectly increase as well. Jianchen sucked in a deep breath and slowly calmed himself down. He stared at the hall spirit with mixed feelings and said in thought, "Actually, removing your curse isn't anything difficult at all. All you need is a grand exalt, an existence akin to a saint, to take action, and it should be enough to easily nullify the curse of another saint. If you're willing, I can find a way to find an expert like that for you." Jianchen began to think about how he could obtain the strand of primeval qi after learning just how useful it was to the sword spirits. He did not dare to think about collecting 10 droplets of essence blood from Grand Primes because such a matter was completely impossible to accomplish. Even in the distant future, he would not be able to do something like that. Even though finding a Grand Exalt was almost impossible as well, it was much easier than collecting 10 droplets of essence blood. Jianchen considered finding a Grand Exalt to remove the curse that kept the artifact spirit bound in exchange for the strand of primeval qi. After all, these were only a handful of Grand Exalts in the current saint's world. With his current strength, meeting an expert like that would not be easy, so he was not going overboard by offering that in exchange for the primeval qi. Moreover, he believed that once a Grand Exalt discovered the existence of the primeval divine hall, they would definitely take personal action with its value. After all, the primeval divine hall was a god artifact on par with the twin swords. However, Jianchen's words seemed to have touched the hall spirit's soft spot. His eyes immediately became piercing as he stared at Jianchen viciously. He said coldly, "Brat, it's best if you don't do that, or I will never spare you even if the yin and yang qi are protecting you." Jianchen immediately frowned when he saw the hall spirit's violent reaction and heard his threats. He stared at the old man before him. He was unable to tell what the artifact spirit was thinking. "Primeval qi, the method mentioned by my master is indeed the only method to free you quickly," the sword spirit said in displeasure. The artifact spirit said coldly, "I've already considered that. If I really wanted to do that, I would have been free long ago. Why would I still be trapped here today? It's just that once a saint learns of my existence, I won't be able to avoid the fate of accepting them as my master. I don't want to yield to anyone else after my master's death, even if they're the strongest saint in the world." Jianchen's expression immediately became strange when he heard that. He felt that this artifact spirit was far too different. He was clearly an artifact spirit, yet he also wanted unconditional freedom. The sword spirits stared at the artifact spirit with mixed feelings. They said, "But you're still an artifact spirit in the end. The reason for an artifact spirit's existence is to stand with its master. It's basically impossible for you to avoid this fate. Even if you can avoid it for some time, it won't last forever. You'll be sensed by the sovereigns of the world sooner or later once you break free and appear in the outside world." That's not for you to worry about. The artifact spirit snorted coldly. 10 droplets of a saint's blood for a strand of primeval chi that can make you even more powerful. Are you willing to make the deal or not? I know you're very weak right now, and you can't collect saint's essence blood, but your innate spirit's transformed from yin and yang chi after all. You'll possess that ability someday in the future. Primeval chi, if you want the 10 droplets of essence blood, you should be asking our master, not us, replied the sword spirits. Your master? The artifact spirit glanced at Jianqin and studied him. He showed some scorn and said, "Him? Although I have no idea why you would choose him as your master, I definitely don't think he'll have the ability to collect 10 droplets of essence blood for me in the future. Although he already has a droplet of a saint's essence blood within him, I can also sense that the essence blood comes from a saint from the aeon before the last one and not this aeon. The only reason he possesses it is luck. Luck like that won't accompany him forever." The artifact spirit suddenly paused, and his face became rather strange. He continued, "Are you trying to say to wait for your master to become a saint in the future?" Before the sword spirits could reply, the artifact spirit sneered and said, "If that's really what you're thinking, I can only tell you that you're far too naive. I know the amount of difficulties and the amount of setbacks on the path to becoming a saint far better than the two of you. During the aeon when my master stood supreme, the path to becoming a saint was also known as a path of bones. The reason why it's called that is because every single saint only arrived where they were by crossing over skeletons after skeletons. The creation of every saint comes at the cost of countless corpses, the deaths of countless prodigies. Your master might have some ability as a current prodigy, but he might just become a stepping stone for other prodigies in their paths to becoming saints in the future. If you want me to place my hopes on your master, that only seems like a waste of time to me." The artifact spirit argued. He did not try to hide his disdain towards Jianqin at all. Although he was an artifact spirit, he originated from a strand of primeval chi. He had his pride. Even grand exalts would struggle to make him yield, let alone Jianqin, who was only a god king right now. The artifact spirit's scorn towards Jianqin angered the sword spirits very much. Qing Suo immediately snorted coldly, "Our master is nowhere near as ordinary as you've described him to be. Primeval chi, open your eyes and take a good look." You still think so? All right then, let me see where your confidence comes from." The artifact spirit did not take the sword spirit's words too seriously. However, he still studied Jianqin earnestly. However, when he did so, his face immediately changed drastically. As if he had been frightened, he could not help but stumble backwards. Even his illusionary body condensed from azure light flickered violently and almost collapsed. Chapter 23:12. Forbidden by the world? Impossible, impossible. This is impossible. The artifact spirit was unable to stop himself. Shock filled his face as he stared straight at Jianqin in extreme fear. Jianqin frowned when he saw the artifact spirit lose his composure. He asked sternly, "What did you see from me?" Why your existence is forbidden by the world. The world cannot tolerate you. Your final fate will be getting mercilessly eliminated by the world. You will face a horrific end. It's impossible for you to make it to the end of your path. The artifact spirit pointed at Jianqin as he shrieked out hysterically. He had reacted as if he had seen something extremely terrifying from Jianqin. Despite being an artifact spirit who had lived through 2 eons and countless years and even followed a saint, he was unable to remain composed. Jianqin frowned heavily. He stared deeply at the artifact spirit who had reacted so violently. He could not help but think back to the spirit of the Eneta Tower he had encountered back on the Tianyuan continent from the artifact spirit's response. When the spirit of the Eneta Tower used his special ability to catch a glimpse of Jianshen's future, he had also reacted like the artifact spirit. His expression had changed, and he cried out similar things. "Can you tell me what you saw from me? Why am I forbidden by the world, and why does the world want to eliminate me?" Jianshen asked again. He was eager to find out from the artifact spirit. Jianshen was just too curious about that glimpse of the future. At the same time, he felt rather uneasy and worried. Just the thought of being eliminated by the world was chilling. It was very difficult for Jianshen to calm down after hearing that. "That's because you're taboo. You should have never existed in the first place. And I can't tell you what I saw. I cannot disclose the heavenly secrets." The artifact spirit looked at Jianshen with fear. He was still shaken. Currently, his gaze towards Jianshen was extraordinarily stern. He no longer despised him. "Perhaps you haven't sensed anything strange right now, nor can you sense any ill omens. That's because you're far too weak right now, weak to the point where any expert could easily crush you. You obviously won't touch on the taboo like that. However, once your strength reaches a certain level in the future, you will know what your final fate is. At that time, you will become an enemy of the entire world, the entire universe. The world wants to eliminate you. No one can help you, including the strongest saint in the world. Even the yin and yang qi won't be of any use. Your final fate is death, completely vanishing from the world. That is your destiny," the artifact spirit followed up sternly. "Primeval Qi, it's still too soon for you to make a conclusion like that. Did you clearly see Master's death in the glimpse of the future you saw?" The artifact spirit's words displeased the sword spirits greatly. Ziying immediately rebuked him. "Nothing can survive once targeted by the world. Even people as powerful as saints will still die to the infinite cataclysm at the end of an aeon, erased by the world," the artifact spirit said grimly. "Most of the saints you speak of are only some mortal beings with great talent who climb their way up step by step. How can they be compared to Master?" Ziying said seriously. "Since Master has appeared, he definitely won't die. Even if he faces the elimination of the world, he'll survive despite the fright," Qing Suo also swore. She was confident in Jianshen. The artifact spirit fell silent. He had gradually calmed down. He stared at Jianshen with shining eyes as the light in them flickered with wisdom. A while later, he suddenly said, "If you can collect 10 droplets of a saint's essence blood and remove the Dao Union saint's curse, I'll change my initial offer. I'll accept you as my second master." "Accept me as your second master?" Jianshen was surprised by the sudden change in attitude. He stared at the artifact spirit strangely and snickered. "Your offer is quite tempting, but I don't think it'll bring me any benefit at all. That's because once I become powerful enough to collect the essence blood of Grand Exalts, you might not be of any use to me anymore. Of course, that is unless you accept me as your master right now. Only then will I search for the essence blood of Grand Exalts without sparing any effort for you." The artifact spirit shook his head and replied, "As long as the Dao Union Saint's curse remains, I won't be able to leave, nor will I be able to bring you any help. If you want me to take you as my master, if you want me to serve you, you need to bring me 10 droplets of a Grand Exalt's essence blood so that I can recover my freedom. And I think the help I'll bring to you before you become a saint will be far greater than the yin and yang qi," the artifact spirit said confidently. Afterwards, Jianshen felt the landscape around him change. He had already been taken to another gloomy space by the artifact spirit. Several dozen huge creatures sat before him with their eyes closed. These creatures seemed extremely like humans, but they were not. "Do you see them? They're the strongest generals who followed my master in the past. Even though they're already dead and their souls have been dispersed, their bodies and the power within their bodies have been perfectly preserved under my powers. As long as you plant a new soul in them, they'll immediately be able to fight for you." "How powerful are these people?" Jianshen asked. He stared at the fallen generals with interest. These experts were ancient beings from 2 eons ago. Before you become a saint, these generals will provide you with the greatest assistance. After all, they had once been raised by my master, the Saint of Grand Clarity, through great efforts, said the artifact spirit. Jian Qin immediately became interested when he heard that. His eyes lit up eagerly. It was quite obvious just how powerful these generals were from the artifact spirit's words. Of course, these generals are unable to fight for you before you find 10 droplets of a saint's essence blood. The Dao Union Saint's curse restrains me, so before its removal, I don't have the power to awaken them, continued the artifact spirit. Is a droplet of essence blood enough to awaken 1 or 2 of them? Jian Qin asked eagerly. He could take out a droplet right now. No, there needs to be 10 droplets of essence blood and no less, or I can't break free from the Dao Union Saint's curse. Looks like there's no other way then. The artifact spirit's words were like dousing Jian Qin in cold water. It immediately destroyed his fantasies. Saints were experts on the same level as Grand Exalts. Collecting 10 droplets of essence blood from Grand Exalts was not something Jian Qin dared to consider even in his wildest dreams. He could not obtain the artifact spirit's assistance or directly possess the Bronze Divine Hall in a short amount of time. Afterwards, Jian Qin discussed with the artifact spirit some more. In the end, he was forced to accept the reality that the primeval Divine Hall had nothing useful to him before he obtained 10 droplets of essence blood from Grand Exalts. I'll leave an imprint on the back of your hand. This imprint is the key to the world of Grand Clarity. When you collect the 10 droplets of essence blood one day, activate the imprint using the method that I'll teach you, and the gateway to here will open up before you. Bear in mind that you can only open the gateway when you're in regular space. The imprint will be rendered useless in some wondrous places, sealed spaces, or even miniature worlds carved out by supreme experts. The imprint can only open the gateway once, so do not activate it before you collect the 10 droplets of essence blood. Under the restraint of the curse, I no longer have the power to give you a second key. Even if you enter the world of Grand Clarity some other way, I only have enough power to bring you here once because the primeval divine palace isn't located in the world of Grand Clarity. This power can only be used once you've collected the 10 droplets of essence blood. The curse from the Dao Union Saint has kept me suppressed for far too long. I can't stay conscious over long periods of time. I must continue slumbering. Leave by yourselves, the artifact spirit warned Jian Qin about many things. After he said that, his figure condensed from azure light seemed to disperse in the breeze like a wisp of smoke. Jian Qin had been sent back to the first floor of the primeval divine hall by the artifact spirit. It was where he had first entered the structure. The method to activate the imprint was now in his head. The ancient hall immediately fell silent. Only Jian Qin was left standing in the huge hall, along with the unconscious Donglin Yanxue in his arms. Master, we still haven't recovered from the fusion, so we need to sleep for a while longer. The voices of the sword spirits rang out in Jian Qin's head. Afterwards, he could clearly sense that the sword spirits had fallen back into a slumber. In that moment, Jian Qin felt rather ashamed. He knew that he had fused the twin swords to free Mo Tianyun's original body last time selfishly, ignoring all the objections from them. He had exerted the sword spirits far too much to the point where they still had not recovered even now. I have to collect 10 droplets of essence blood from Grand Exalts. Even if it's not for the primeval divine hall, I have to do it for the strand of primeval chi. Jian Qin secretly swore an oath. The only way for him to make it up to the sword spirits was to obtain the primeval chi that would allow them to exceed their former prime. Afterwards, he glanced at his hand. There was a shallow imprint on the back of his hand, and as he looked at it, it gradually faded before disappearing completely in the end. However, Jian Qin knew that the key to the world of Grand Clarity had already fused into the back of his hand completely. It was hidden away deeply such that only he could sense its existence. Jian Qin left the primeval divine hall with the unconscious Donglin Yanxue and appeared outside. It was still the same as when he first arrived. A strange mist filled the surroundings, while the primeval divine hall shone with a dazzling azure light that seemed to glow forever, illuminating the region. This should be the tunnel out of here. Jian Qin looked forwards. The strange mist swirled around slowly there. Even though it was all misty within the swirl, Jian Chen could sense the powers of space. However, he did not leave because he somewhat understood that as long as he remained here, Donglin Yanxue would remain unconscious. Her unconsciousness did not come from her wounds. Rather, it was because of the artifact spirit. The artifact spirit did not want another master, so he did not want Donglin Yanxue to learn of his existence. It was a measure taken just in case Donglin Yanxue disclosed this fact and drew in experts from the outside world. If she awakens, I'll be really restrained. I won't be able to act freely at all. It looks like I need to spend some time here. Jian Chen was in no hurry to leave. With a thought, the Aneta Tower suddenly appeared. Under Jian Chen's control, the damaged Aneta Tower covered in sword slashes stood several hundred meters tall. The artifact spirit had already hidden itself in this wondrous space for 2 eons, so he did not need to worry about being discovered by experts in the outside world if he took out the Aneta Tower here. Afterwards, Jian Chen placed the unconscious Donglin Yanxue outside the Aneta Tower, allowing her to remain under the influence of the artifact spirit. He, on the other hand, entered the Aneta Tower with a flash. Unbeknownst to Jian Chen, a figure shrouded in hazy light was sitting within the majestic heavenly palace of Bixing when he took out the Aneta Tower. The power of laws revolved around the figure, conjuring the mysteries of the world. Vaguely, the laws seemed to boom out like a great chime. The figure seemed to have fused with the laws, becoming a part of them. The figure truly seemed to be supreme, capable of controlling the supreme power that operated the world. They seemed to represent the greatest will of the world. In that moment, the figure seemed to sense something. Their eyes snapped open. The pair of eyes were extremely cold, holding no emotions at all and looking down on all lives. Primeval force, the figure murmured. The voice seemed to contain all the sounds of the world while the cold eyes seemed to pierce through space into the depths of the cosmos. Heya, just break through here? A divine hall stood within the Aneta Tower. Jian Chen stood outside the divine hall as he spoke to the black-clothed Heya. Heya had already reached peak God King, and with the flower of ways from Jian Chen, he had already comprehended the mysteries of the primordial realm. He could break through at any time. However, the divine hall he previously stayed in was unable to endure the pulses of energy from his breakthrough due to its limited grade. As a result, he could only delay his breakthrough under Jian Chen's request. Now that they were in the wondrous space where the artifact spirit resided, Jian Chen did not need to worry about exposing the Aneta Tower. As a result, he moved Heya into the Aneta Tower for him to break through inside it. Yes, master. Heya replied politely. Afterwards, he sat on the floor and began his breakthrough. Jian Chen smiled gladly as he watched Heya. Once Heya reached the primordial realm, it would hold extremely great significance to him. It would mean possessing a primordial realm expert that was completely devoted to him. He could use Heya whenever he wanted. At this moment, Jian Chen could not help but think back to the situation with the divine kingdom of Pingtian in the past. When the divine kingdom faced the invasion of the Empyrean demon cult, just a single vice leader who had reached the primordial realm, Huayan, was enough to suffocate most of the experts from the divine kingdom. During that time, the primordial realm was synonymous with expert. As a matter of fact, the primordial realm seemed like an uncrossable mountain in the eyes of many god kings. This was because a huge, gaping chasm separated the primordial realm and godhood. Out of the countless god kings in the saints' world, only a few would truly be able to reach the primordial realm. Once a divine kingdom gained a primordial realm expert, its status would immediately change. It would become an empire. Now, Jian Chen was about to have a primordial realm expert all to himself, so it was obviously a joyous matter. Suddenly, Jian Chen thought of something. He slowly raised his hand, and an extremely beautiful orchid suddenly appeared. The orchid possessed self-consciousness and had rather high intelligence. As soon as it appeared, it swayed like it was greeting Jian Chen. Jian Chen paid attention to the immortal devouring orchid in his hand and smiled faintly. "You've finally reached godhood. You should be able to enjoy the corpses of the 2 god kings now." As he said that, Two corpses gradually hovered out from the divine hall before landing gently near Jian Chen's feet. The two corpses belonged to the people Gongzheng Exine had sent to deal with him back when he left the Radiant Saint Hall. In the end, they had been pulled into the divine hall and were finished off by Heya. Jian Chen had kept their corpses around for the immortal devouring orchid to feast on so that they could nourish the orchid. The immortal devouring orchid possessed a certain degree of intelligence now. When it saw the two corpses, it became especially excited. It immediately leapt off Jian Chen's hand and rooted down on one of the corpses, beginning to spread its roots. The immortal devouring orchid had only just reached godhood. It was equivalent to an early deity. Obviously, it could not devour the two corpses that were far more powerful than it instantly with its current abilities. As a result, it rooted itself in one of the open injuries and slowly absorbed a droplet of the God King's blood. The energy within a God King was just too tremendous for it right now. As a result, the immortal devouring orchid could only absorb a single droplet of blood at a time. Jian Chen watched the immortal devouring orchid eagerly. The early deity orchid might have only been able to absorb a single droplet of blood at a time, but the amount of blood it could absorb each time would constantly increase as it rapidly strengthened. Once it reached a certain level in strength, it would be able to directly devour an entire corpse or even multiple corpses. I bestow these two corpses upon you. You have to properly increase your strength in the next period of time, Jian Chen said gently. The immortal devouring orchid was of no use to him right now, but he firmly believed the sword spirit's words. The immortal devouring orchid would be of great help to him in the future. Afterwards, Jian Chen appeared on the 9th floor, arriving where Qing Yishuan cultivated. Qing Yishuan currently sat on the fortune jade as golden light permeated her surroundings. She seemed holy. Strands of the laws of the sword revolved around her. Sword qi condensed and shone with dazzling white light, swimming around her like tiny tadpoles. Sharp sword qi enveloped a range of several dozen meters around her. Early over God. Jian Chen saw through Qing Yishuan's current strength with a single glance, and he could not help but nod secretly. At this rate, Qing Yishuan would reach God King or even the primordial realm before too long. Of course, apart from the golden core of laws within her, the fortune jade also played a crucial role in her quick progress. The bottlenecks for the cultivation realms are very easy to break through, so under the assistance of the golden core of laws and the fortune jade, her rate of improvement can be described as ungodly. However, the further she advances, the more difficult the breakthroughs for each cultivation realm will become. Even with the golden core of laws and the fortune jade, it'll take her quite some time to make progress. I wonder how long it'll take for her comprehension of the laws of the sword to reach God King, Jian Chen murmured gently. He had used the fortune jade to directly comprehend the mysteries in the golden core of laws, spending only around half a year to reach early God King in one type of law. However, it was impossible for Qing Yishuan to achieve the same speed. As a result, Qing Yishuan needed much more time than Jian Chen despite using the same method for her comprehension. Jian Chen reached out, and Qing Yishuan, who sat on the fortune jade, was immediately enveloped by an invisible power. She rose up slowly, leaving the fortune jade. The fortune jade suddenly flew over and landed in Jian Chen's hand. Qing Yishuan sensed nothing throughout the entire process because Jian Chen had lifted her using the power of the Anata Tower. Under Jian Chen's purposeful control, she was completely unaffected. Afterwards, Jian Chen left the 9th floor with the fortune jade and returned to Heiya's location on the 1st floor. With a thought, he controlled the power of the Anata Tower and placed the fortune jade under Heiya in a similar manner. Immediately, the hazy light from the fortune jade enveloped Heiya, shrouding his figure. After placing the fortune jade there, Jian Chen could clearly sense Heiya's presence rise at a rate several times faster than before. It was evident that the fortune jade was of great help to Heiya's breakthrough. I hope you can reach the primordial realm successfully before I leave here, Jian Chen thought. For Heiya to break through to the primordial realm in the shortest time possible, Jian Chen had used everything he could think of. He even used a treasure like the fortune jade on Heiya without any hesitation at all. He truly spared no effort in nurturing Heiya. Jianchen did not waste the following period of time either. He used the short period to enter seclusion as well. I've already comprehended the laws of strength, the laws of space, and the laws of destruction to God King when I was in the underground cavern. All that remains are the laws of creation, the laws of fire, the laws of corrosion, and the laws of curses. I've already comprehended the laws of curses to mid over God. I'm close to God King now. I need to comprehend the 7 laws to God King as soon as possible, as they play a direct role in whether I can leave the desolate plane in the future or not. Even if I can't keep the Inetta Tower, I have to be the one who hands it to the heavenly palace of Bishing. I can't let others take advantage of me. Jianchen closed his eyes. The laws that belonged to the power of curses gradually descended, wrapping around him. The space where the artifact spirit resided was always surrounded by white mist. There were no celestial bodies, so he could not sense the flow of time at all. Suddenly, a powerful presence appeared. It was like a storm had begun to rage abruptly on a calm ocean surface. It made the calm space surge with energy as the gales howled like ghosts. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.